creating a blog about it, and you also put a link for a certain program.
Yeah, any web page links to any other. If it's on the web, you can use the web map. You can use it as a web mention.
Okay.
Where it gets more complicated is, so we can say like A is linking to B.
Yeah.
And then B can say, oh, are you actually linking to me? All right, yeah, okay, yes, you are. Fine. But then you say, okay, well, what about, what about other uses? What about like, I borrowed an image from here.
Okay.
So yeah,
It's really an issue of how you display, because kind of what started web mentions was, before web mentions there were trackbacks, which is kind of the first attempt to solve this problem. But trackbacks had many issues.
They weren't verified was the biggest one.
Sorry?
They weren't verified.
They weren't verified. One of the other wasn't sort of an issue with the spec, but the display was ugly.
Okay.
And the pingback display was
So
the same way.
the basic of it is the web mention is just sharing posts, basically, or links, or whatever.
And to me, it's a lot about attribution,
Right.
especially when you should archive. It's like, if I want to use an image and like appropriately attribute it to its author, to its source, what's the way for me to kind of encode that?
I wanted to just
Control that, and control as well how many people are seeing that.
Yeah.
Right.
So here's an example. So you've got
It's like collecting bookmarks, but you want to
Do you want to hook it up to the main screen?
Yeah, it's got its own.
That's right. That's not the, that's the power cable.
Yeah, power cable.
Can you
grab it?
and maybe plug the?
So
Where's the actual?
So this is how pingbacks used to run. So you'll note here that this is a normal comment. This is a normal comment.
Yeah.
On a blog post. This one here is a pingback, which is the same, broadly the same as a trackback. There's slightly different technically, but
Display-wise, they're always.
display-wise, they're always displayed the same. Now this comment here says, "Hey, great, that's very helpful and inspiring for non-English learners." Right, so that's actually useful. It's a comment on the piece of content you're reading. Then this is just a link. This doesn't add anything of interest to the reader.
This whole thing,
To the person reading the page, this is just meta crap. It's just not interesting. Whereas this bit here is like, oh, okay, go post a shout here, da, 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 da. But this thing here just doesn't. It's not. It's kind of a mention, but it's not a response. It's
Pingback. Pingback.
Yeah. So web mention is kind of an attempt to go beyond that.
Right, and so pingback was something, is like, if you were running a WordPress blog, you would know that if you were mentioning another blog post, it would say, okay, I'm going to kind of scrape through the content of when I'm going to go to that page when this post is, see if there's like a certain amount of markup there, and if there's a way for that pingback service to be registered, your blog software that was posting that could know to send some sort of notification to this other blog software to say, this post has been mentioned in my post. You know, your blog software might do nothing with it. It might just store that information in the back end. It might show that, display that, and I think part of what we're like, part of with web mentions is that there's a possibility of doing
Something else.
something else. It's not just that sort of like this sort of passive, just link in passing. You can say like, this may be a particular kind of response. Like
Does web mention has a tool to play with statistics?
Just like you did on WordPress.
Like
don't
how many
know.
people,
What do you mean by
how many people are checking that?
That's not an issue. So his kind of, this is Aaron Brecky's side.
And he's usually 10 steps ahead of most of us. If we
I
thought
don't know
about
where
it,
he
he
gets
probably
his
built
lines
it.
about that. Anyway, so
Yeah.
he has kind of inline responses,
Okay.
And look at where they're coming from.
and some of them are coming from Twitter.
Yeah.
So you see there, like, that's a link to Twitter, so I click through.
How do you know that?
But
Sorry, I don't use Twitter.
So this is a piece of content that Aaron posted to the site,
Yeah.
and
I think.
This is his clock that
No,
moves
no, no, no,
based
no,
on
no, no.
what venue he's last checked in at.
So this is a thing that he built. So there's a video and a comment about it, and underneath it, he's got 8 comments, 69 likes, 17 mentions, 20 reposts, and the likes are all mostly Twitter users. They've all got little Twitter symbols, some Instagram in there. He's got people on Instagram who like it,
So I don't have.
so on and so forth.
Okay.
And then reposts are all pretty much Twitter, Medium, a whole bunch of services.
Sorry, this mention, 17 mentions, is it web mention? Is that the same?
Yeah, the web mention is kind of the tech.
Web mention is the what they call the plumbing.
Yeah.
It's the medium that it comes through on, but it could come through on even on pingback.
But it's the same thing as mention, right? 17?
Mention is the broader category.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
I mentioned you, which means I linked to something that you did.
Okay.
Web mention is how you tell another site that you link to them.
Yeah.
Out of linking is the mentioning is just the linking. It's not inherently telling somebody.
So it's not really correlated, it's correlated because it's a mention, it's a blogging, but it's not using that tool, web mention.
Not necessarily, yeah, like,
Web mention is considered to be a tool, or what was that?
It's a protocol, right?
it's a way for two systems to talk to each other.
Okay.
It's basically I link to your site, and then I want you to know that I linked to your site. So I send you a web mention saying I linked to you, so that you know about it. And if you choose to do something about it, that's your decision.
Okay, okay.
So here, I mean, some of these comments are from Twitter, like I can hover over here, you see them here, it's like Twitter.
Then there's known if you go down a few.
That's a tweet that somebody posted in response.
That's why, basically should we pick the ones you want. But yeah, go to mine.
That's from Known, that's from Kevin Marks on Known, so he posted that on his Known website. There's a tweet from the Swarm app itself, and then a whole bunch of stuff from Twitter.
How did you know what that one was from Swarm? Was it saying on
the
the
icon?
line?
Had the icon.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, that's. But the thing is that here, this is rendered like a comment thread. There's an actual value there. You can read it, and it reads like a comment thread you might see on Twitter or Facebook or
this is
those kind of sites. Whereas that thing I had a moment ago, that ghastly image I had a second ago, which I closed, like it was just
Random.
it's just crap. Nobody wants to read that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but the example is like Tumblr has this kind of nice design. Where it's like you can see, oh, this person liked this person liked this person reblogged this, whatever. And some of them will be like,
zoomed in.
There'll be like comments and stuff. Yeah, so there's like comments on.
One of the things I just sort of, I guess, uncovered, I guess, just looking
Yeah, but I don't think
at
I want my things to go on the
is
case.
about this
Notion
no, it was just, I was just gonna say, I don't have to pull it up,
Page.
but it was this,
Yeah, but I don't want to do that
this
much work.
notion.
I don't have, like,
Okay.
people.
show this.
Yeah, some people do that just because they want to engage more.
But the exotic part
Not yet.
that you were
Like,
mentioning,
if 10 people.
there have been people who have done
I'll be
even
happy.
So go back to
things in that
I'm
area.
making myself.
There was a discussion nobody implemented of using web mentions as a tool to distribute basically bibliographic data.
Mm-hmm.
And this came out, I'm not sure if it was recorded, it was at Indiewebcamp in Portland
Okay.
last year.
You
And
get
basically,
people that follow.
The discussion was that if you have a record on your site of a book, then you could send, basically, if that was based off of another record, on another site, you could send them a web mention, they could choose to update their version of the same thing with some of the extra data you added in. So you could basically distribute
So
reading data. You were in that conversation.
So this is something I came across just today. Well, sort of.
Did you guys do Let's Encrypt? Did it happen?
Yeah.
You're talking about web mentions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is how is this notion of like, okay, in the case you were just showing on our site, it's like you posted something and then you see all of this activity from Twitter that mention that site. Is that what this sort of notion is? This.
Yeah, backfeed, webmention.io.
Yeah. Implementing
Well,
that
sorry,
to
Bridgie
make it
as
easy
well,
for those to see the same people who interact with the copies of the content back to that original site.
That's
And so you implement this with web mentions.
Well, Bridgie, for example, does.
Yeah.
So Bridgie is like a translation layer. It speaks to the APIs of various services, and then it sends web mentions.
Oh, okay.
yes, it's backfeed proxy.
So you could do that yourself also. You could go write yourself a Twitter API library or what have you that would actually pull that information back and do the same thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
And I found the notes from Portland on the bibliographic data.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
I knew we had notes at some point.
So is Bridgie a service or is it an open source sort of?
Both.
Okay.
It's not a money-making service. I think it costs I think he said $6 a year to run the thing.
There is a domain name.
Yeah, it's meant it.
No, I think he said the hosting costs were minimal. So I think he says it in the documentation page if you look. I think there's a section there where it's.
So this is like so a proxy layer between all of these sort of silo corporate APIs and web mentions.
Yes, so it sends web mentions to your site about things that are happening on a site that doesn't support web mentions. So you could do proxies for other things also. And there's also, if you don't implement web mentions on your site, there's webmention.io, which is basically a hosted web mention proxy as well.
Yeah. So you could just put a blog. That's quite useful for Jekyll. You can just put some JavaScript in and it's pulling it in from there.
Yeah.
Oh, are we up to?
Yeah, we have been for some time now.
Okay.
Ever since I realized we'd started the session without officially saying we were starting the session, I figured I'd turn it on. And I did post the link in chat, and we currently have, well, we had one earlier, but we're at 0 viewers.
Where's the screen?
Oh, I have fun.
We were projecting from something else at that time.
Okay.
That seems to have frozen though.
That's not cool.
Yeah, because I tried to, that's the one they had? Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I tried to switch it back over to the chat window, and I couldn't. I figured I'd just leave it where it was.
Not even
No, we have watched video up on it.
Yeah.
Who read that?
But
I mean, that's way too just as well.
But it's spot on. It's not a problem.
But you also get into other things that aren't in the spec that have been experimented with. You have private messaging using web mentions. So basically, you could have somebody be notified of something via web mention that they could not see unless they were basically logging. Usually, the implementation is logging via Indieoff. So basically, send a note to your site that there's something there for them to look at, but they would have to log in to actually see what it was.
And is how closely related are web mentions with web hooks? Like
They have the word web in them.
okay,
It's like grapefruit.
grapefruit thing. Okay.
Not quite. If you think of a different analogy. They both have suffixes, whereas grape is a substring, grapefruit. A substring prefix.
So I have a kind of a nitty-gritty implementation question about web mention that I don't want to, I mean, it's kind of like, it might be a brief discussion, but it's sort of like trying to grapple with one of these aspects of the spec, which
It's like
is,
seagull and seafoam.
okay, got it.
All kinds of good analogies.
And part of that is the requirement to support the requirements around discovery of the web mention endpoint. And part of the reason why this has come up in the IIIF community is that when we have basically these metadata structures that we're using to represent sequences and groupings of images, those are JSON documents, they're JSON-LG. There are presentation applications or client applications of those APIs that could expose that, but it's not necessarily going to be, there will not necessarily be an HTML representation of a IIIF manifest. Okay,
But
so
there doesn't need to be.
I'm just reading the spec requiring that.
Spec for Overwatch?
Web
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the client will support all three of. Okay.
I think the key there is that the assumption is if something is on the web, then it must have an HTML representation because that's how people browse the web.
Right.
And therefore, that's the preferred representation to use because it can be human verified, more accurate, etc. etc.
And also because there's not really any, the semantics of there being a link from one page to the other doesn't really exist in, it exists in RDF, it doesn't necessarily exist, it might exist just about in XML, it doesn't really exist in JSON because it's just a string that looks like a URL.
This is JSON-LD, so.
Okay, JSON-LD, okay.
Which is, again, like I get,
Yeah,
I understand the expectation of HTML, but
yeah.
thinking about the application of web mention here, sort of, is there, do we need to be considering a different integration layer or something
Well,
else?
But it's right
and then
here.
get into, what's that horrible
In a
thing?
JSON document, the receiver should look for properties whose values are an exact match for the URL.
Is that in the spec?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Actually, it's in
Even
there.
better.
So it does cover that, and then the link itself can go in the HTTP
And we
header.
just don't have any implementations that do that yet.
Yeah.
But it actually is.
But the idea is that even for most folks that have like JSON or JSON-LD endpoints, they typically have some HTML page, which is the like browser representation of that.
Also, if you're into JSON-LD land, you get into HTTP range 14, like the distinction between the name of the thing and the document. So, you know, have fun solving that one. It's not like the semantic web community solved that in the last 20 years.
No, I know.
Bears in the chat. Bears.
Yep.
Wonder where.
Oh, he just, we were checking in the chat about
Yeah, so like,
non-indie web related stuff.
I like that HTTP range 14 has its own Wikipedia article.
yeah, I mean, I think that the webhook sort of thing I'm trying to sort of get out of it is just sort of glossing over the web mentions sort of page on the wiki, which obviously I'm not gonna like. I won't get everything out of it if I just gloss over it, but they both involve sort of like a predetermined post, like form post to sort of a predetermined URL with predetermined parameters.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the issue you might have there is if you had a URL that was just, I mean, we had this a while back. Somebody raised an issue on the web mention spec, which was, what do I do if I have a website and it doesn't actually have any HTML in it? It's just JavaScript that loads everything up. To which our dismissive response was, maybe you have an actual website, right? Which like is my answer, but the pragmatist in me is like, yeah, but these things aren't going away, unfortunately, much as I'd like them to.
Which aren't going away.
Websites that don't actually get HTML, they just will load up everything via Ajax.
Excuse me.
React, all those kind of things.
On a short enough time frame,
Okay.
they already have gone away.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, my answer to those people is like, in 2 years, you won't exist. Your URL won't exist. Your content won't exist. So we're going to ignore your use case because in 2 years, your use case doesn't actually matter.
Yeah.
And it sounds rude and dismissive, but it's been historically shown to be true.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, if you want to matter, you have to make things last.
So
If you want to make things last, you got to put it out there in some static form that
yeah.
archives can archive. Otherwise,
So
you don't exist.
The flip side of that is there is an easy-ish way you could solve this problem, which is you just add an accept header. You just add an accept or a MIME type to the web mention. You say, yeah, there's a web mention for you here, but it's in JSON.
Sure. And then see if anyone consumes it.
Yeah. And the thing is,
That's like saying, I'm going to tell all the browsers that they can ask for XHTML from my website,
yeah,
and then none of the browsers care.
yeah,
Because
Like people have to publish HTML.
yeah.
Browsers don't care. Not
I would look at a
XHTML.
page that actually.
The web mention spec.
Yeah.
I think if you just search for spec on the page, just do.
Have you updated the web mentions thing with the new W3 spec?
Yeah, I'm looking at the W3.
Isn't that? I'm funny the date mentioned in Wikipedia, 12th January.
It just got published
Sticking out.
on W3C.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, took a little while,
So
but
really now.
Well, yeah,
It's
but
not very
yeah.
recent.
the difference is that we, like,
It's
by
been-
we, I mean,
It's been a draft
Yeah.
spec. This is now it's a community spec.
yeah. The W3C have ceased being a way that they don't really develop so much now. As people just come to them and say, hey, I've got this thing, can you stamp it?
Yeah, I'll see.
or can you tell us like what we need to fix in it,
Yeah.
given your more
It's a
diverse
real-
expertise?
Right. It's a revising body and then an official stamp.
When it works well.
When it
I
works
think
well.
that's the.
When it doesn't, it's a big shouty argument. Or at least it always was, but now it's public. It's a big shouty argument.
But this is anybody who's trying to come to a consensus on anything.
That's not true.
Most
That's a
people,
reductio.
no, most people seem to fight about things if they feel passionate about them.
The people that ship end up eventually stopping fighting and ship, and so that's the key. Is
People bike shed.
to work with people who want to ship more than they want to argue, and you will find that you come to some sort of agreement
So,
sooner rather than later.
so what you two were just talking about this distinction between sort of JSON payloads versus HTML payloads. That's really around the purposes of verification that this web mention is actually a valid one. How do we? Is that? I guess I'm just sort of.
Well, if you take away that part, you end up with the old trackback problem.
Right.
Which
I'm
is,
not
trackback right now is an avenue for spam because anybody can send something to a website that is even verified as a link.
Yeah.
Which is currently the problem with a lot of websites that still support trackback.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I mean,
Like, yeah, unless you provided some like preordained JSON schema that said like this is where you're gonna find what you're looking for. It's like you have no way. Makes sense.
and I mean, I think this gives me enough insight into how to parse, presumably a JSON-only object, but any JSON object. I guess the thing that, yeah, we get to the HTTP range 14 problem, but like to give you an example, let's see here.
As an aside, does anyone know
I just had to Google the range 14.
anyone know who Fiat Jaff is?
They're being dragons. I'm trying to avoid talking about it. I'm just trying to verify for Tom that this is an example of why yes, this is precisely the problem that we're trying to figure out how to deal with.
Oh shit! Yeah. as I'm reading this. Okay.
Or the more cynical way of looking at it is that HTTP range 14 is a honeypot for architecture astronauts.
I was in the live stream.
Too good not to quote. All right, so the Internet Archive.
People are listening. I think.
The Internet Archive recently launched a IIIF service. So this is a viewer called Mirador, which is designed to be a IIIF viewer. And so I'm not going to get into detail of the APIs right now, but this is a JavaScript client app that's running completely in the browser. It's pulling in manifests and making requests to images to these external services. But as you can see up here, really from the perspective of if you were to fetch this page, it may just precede some very minimal information, but this is a client application.
Yeah.
There would probably not, I would hesitate to recommend that this client application injects additional properties, because what the resource we really care about in this case, from the perspective of IIIF, is the manifest. Hopefully, that's going to load.
What if you just go to slash?
If you just go to slash, it'll just reload the viewer. So.
Oh, does each image not have its own permalink?
Each image does. I'm just trying to show you an example of the manifest so you can see it. This is. So.
So having a digital resource like this, what would you want a web mentioning to do with it?
So here we go. So I'm just going to open it in text edit. So Tantek, as you were asking, so this manifest, which is understood to be this particular entire sequence of images, that has its own URI, and this is JSON. Each individual image has its own identifier as well. So this is like the base URI for a IIIF image service that allows you to then provide a zoomable, so there's an identifier for the image, and then you make a set of requests against that base URI according to the spec. So in our case, we've got a couple of use cases which are around, I'm just pulling the thread back up. A scholar creates additional structural descriptions that the host manifest doesn't currently have. So for example, Internet Archive will do digitization at a very gross scale. We'll break it out into a sequence of pages, but may not describe the actual chapters that are in it. So an annotator, like a scholar or a member of the public, may come along, publish an additional manifest to say, all right,
These 3 pages are the intro, then
right, exactly. This person would then publish them on a system. they control and would like to notify the institution that hosts that manifest.
Can I interrupt? So when they write those annotations, would those be in the form of HTML?
They would be in the form
Plain
of
text or
JSON,
JSON? Okay.
according to the preferences and norms of the IIIF community. So using the web annotation spec, which is like a simplification of open annotation. So,
like, it seems to me the way to solve this problem is to say, like, we'll have like web mention and then sort of web mention extensions, which are like this is a pretty niche use case. Like, it's going to be something that's only going to be specific to the, you know, library, museum, archive context.
How is it any different than someone posted a photo, someone commented on a photo?
I guess it's sort of
Well, because with the comment on the photo, you're commenting on one individual JPEG in one individual picture, whereas this is you're expressing some quite detailed semantics about the relationship of a group of images within a collection.
And I think in our case, I'm tending to lean towards I just care about notification, that some annotation exists.
Yes.
I'm not even expecting that the web mention service can parse and do something incredibly sophisticated with that up front. It's more just a purely mechanical, like essentially like an expansion on doing like a track back or a ping back.
Yeah.
I just want to know that this image, this sequence or this image resource was referenced in some way.
So you want to store that information and you don't know yet exactly how you're going to take advantage.
Right.
So there are people who are just storing web mentions.
Yep. Yeah. It's just making sure that knowing that there's not, because we have, this community is very aware of HTTP range 14 and its implications, but has kind of come down on one particular side that the HTML presentation is not really purposely understood to be not the same resource as the manifest. Like the manifest is its own, and we care about making assertions about the manifest or an object within that manifest, which also will have their own URIs, rather than saying like, make this like something about the viewer in this context. So so. Right. I think I understand it's
So I think
as much of a big deal as I was concerned about. So
There are people posting collections, collection posts on the Indieweb, where I think this idea came from the practice of, I forget what the name of the site is, but posting sets of tweets. Yeah, Storify.
Oh, yeah.
Posting a collection of tweets, which is curated. Like, it's not just a
really
search
cool.
result or anything. It's like, I have a bunch of tweets, and I want to put them all into one
Tell a
post.
story,
Tells a story. It's not necessarily even out of order. Like, you're gonna, or maybe there's like, here's one thread of the story, here's another thread of the story.
Or here's the thing which happened, and here's like the 50 best
Or
reactions.
here's a conversation that happened between two people.
Right.
It's all their individual tweets.
Right. And so it's kind of that kind of curation that to me seems very similar to some of the use cases you're talking about.
right.
But it's all done with HTML. And what I was going to ask is, let's see here. I know Aaron does. To your collection posts, send web mentions to the things being collected. Theoretically, I don't know if he actually does it, it's possible for the collection post to tell the things that are being collected, hey, you just got collected. Like, you were in a collection. And at that point, the thing can either be like, oh, okay, thank you, and like ignore it. Or some, enterprising developer or whatever could decide, oh, on my individual photo page, I'm going to make a list of all the collections that include this photo, which I know because I got a web mention from the collection. And it can build completely dynamically. I can verify that the page actually has me in the collection. And that way, from either resource, you can get to the other. That's kind of the idea there.
You can even go in the other direction. I don't want to be mentioned by this person. I wanted to ask them to take it down.
Right. Okay. Yeah, this is super helpful.
But once you realize that all you're doing is telling another site what you already know, the other site has all the power. So if you're the receiver as opposed to the sender, you decide what you want to do with it, what you choose to do with the information, or when you choose to do it.
Is there any way of blocking some content to be mentioned or posted or linked in any way? Or no? There's any program that blocks an image to
You could just ignore a web mention coming in.
And there's something in the specification level.
Security, you want to put something in the page,
Right.
and you don't want anybody else to share that picture or copy that picture.
There's only one way to prevent that, it's just to not post on the
Not post it.
Well, there are ways to tell people you do not want it to be. That doesn't mean that they'll respect them.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always been ways to tell
No,
them.
no.
I can tell people I want to be left alone, and then 50 people can bother me. But I have a sign that says, "Please leave me alone. I'm doing something." Doesn't
Yeah,
work.
if it's out, if I can just get it like a URL like any other web page that's out there.
It's out there, yeah, okay. Like something that is will happen, so somebody's going to create something. I don't know.
You know, you can make it so that you have to log in to see it, maybe.
Password,
Well, that's the whole private post philosophy, which is you could send a web mention saying that you linked, and that link requires a login.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it's sort of if your site wants to consume web mentions about the content on your site, there is a process to verify that those mentions are actually legitimate, which is part of these, like the more kind of in-depth technical questions that I was trying to get at is from this verification process, what is the impact on that if we're just like because there's a clear preference for these being actual pages, like HTML pages, as opposed to like some other like just structured sort of machine readable content.
But the spec does allow for a property to be the URL, so
Right.
that solves the problem.
Mhm.
So it is something that was thought about.
I haven't actually paid attention to web mentions much in the last year or so. I was reading through the W3C spec then.
Said a lot of things I've never noticed by reading the draft spec on.
But also, right at the bottom, there's the non-normative library section. There's a link to Went, the Python library, which does all of the parsing. And it's built on top of MFTPY, which makes me happy.
Well, does anybody want sort of a brief overview of Nuts and Crypt, or should we just skip it?
I would be interested in going over it. I mean, if you're happy to read it.
Yeah, I think it could be really helpful.
I'm satisfied
I
with
have
what I
a
mentioned for now.
question on this before
Yeah,
we
sure.
move on, which is that in looking at this, like there isn't anything there that I'm seeing that wouldn't work in like a simple HTML page, a simple static HTML page representation. And in fact, most of that seems like things that you could mark up with microformats, and then automatically generate the JSON as well. But because it's an image, you would have this small viewable representation of a series of images. Right? Because in the JSON, it's not going to show you the images in line, but obviously each one of the little indented things is an image, right?
Yeah, it's so specifically it's a description of
Well, it says canvas.
an image service. So that
So send me this URL plus the height and width that you want,
right.
or the size you want.
So just to show you really quick, there's I mean, a manifest can indicate preferences in terms of height and width, but
That's interesting.
That does raise an interesting question, which is how we're going to deal with the new responsive imagery stuff, source set, and picture and so on.
I keep asking for people publishing those with real world examples so that we can analyze them. And basically not worrying about how we're going to deal with it until someone starts showing.
Well, I didn't have to start publishing them. They started publishing for me.
Right.
Well, that's really the problem with other people issuing upgrades into your website.
Oh, WordPress. Okay.
They put in responsive images, so one day I had them.
How are they doing it in WordPress?
Basically, they do automatic
So
size
these are
generation.
You can
So they
reference
use
like a
size.
section of an image. I mean,
They
so
do
the different implementations
They generate
will have
about 5
different
sizes
levels of
for any
service they can
imported
provide.
media.
But the
So
idea is, for
basically, they're
example,
just,
you could
just giving the list of.
ask for a cropped version of the resource or
This is
rotation.
super cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
So the responsive images stuff handles cropping.
Yeah.
I know that.
And then there's like a whole separate, there's additional stuff in terms of if you have like a restricted image resource, like how to do authentication in it.
Seems like something we should probably collect use cases on, collect published examples of.
So in the Etherpad, I think that thread that I mentioned before, which talks about the use cases. The person who started the thread brought it up since he's involved with W3C and works at Stanford, and one of the Rob, yeah, Sanderson, yeah. So, and a couple of members of the IIIF community seem to be very keen on working on an implementation of the two use cases, one of the two use cases listed in that thread. So.
So I have a proposal, which is that I think this is the Pesos thing I put up there. I don't really think it's all that interesting. Like, it's interesting to me, but I'm probably not going to implement anything around it anytime soon.
Are you going to be around tomorrow?
Maybe we'll see how that.
I would like to talk to you about it because I at some point, if it's not
So
this week,
do you want to do this where we talk about Let's Encrypt and then instead of talking about Pesos, let's go right into.
Okay.
Yes, it's the device testing is interesting.
Yeah, that's
The device stuff is interesting, but I can spend 10 minutes on Let's Encrypt.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about ASIS and working in
Yeah.
implementation patterns since I'm kind of hoping to do like
Or-
massive migrations.
I think we're all interested if we spend a lot of time on everything. That's always the problem.
So also this
But we're at this like in-between size where we can easily all fit it on a table. Hey, Laura.
I'm really busy right now creating my WordPress.
Nice. I'm really supposed to say, I'm really busy right now creating my own website.
Yes, my website.
Not just talking about it.
Okay.
Ooh, burn.
Right, so
Getting a head start on tomorrow.
Okay.
right here.
So I guess I'll talk a little bit about.
I think I'm going to walk there tomorrow.
Which is
From
Queens.
through the snow,
Okay,
both ways.
you're gonna go over the 59th Street Bridge?
Well, no, I'm going to do as much walking as is minimally necessary.
Okay.
Not because I have a problem with walking, but because if it's 6 to 12 inches, that could be an issue.
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
I'm going to have to bring my extra gear. I don't have a. Did you buy the golden boots?
No.
Okay.
I just brought my hunter wallies. They'll have to deal with that.
Can I plug in real quick? Is that cool? I don't want to disrupt the process.
This is GitHub. This is GitHub profile. That's his username.
So I kind of came across Let's Encrypt just over the past, I guess, year or so.
I think it's Ben from before.
No, you.
Oh, that's back.
Hey.
I brought from the platform cooperative or something.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Join us.
Yes, we're gonna make.
Are we on schedule?
There's food.
Wow.
Please eat. There's food here, drinks in there, Wi-Fi into there, restrooms to the door.
Perfect.
That's all I have. That's it.
That's all I need.
Do you have a website yet?
Yes, do you want to see
Yes,
it?
we do.
I'm on my second post. I'm just trying to figure out
Busy.
how it works.
While you're over there, could I ask for a favor?
And then
Could you hand me a
I'm
Coke
trying
Zero?
to make the post.
Then I don't have to push past 3 people.
Do they have green?
I can check.
We shall see. And then I'm gonna try yours, and so I'm gonna try, I'm gonna try that tomorrow.
I don't see
myself heavily caffeinated.
So I decided I can do
I
some
don't
more
like coffee.
myself. And the harder one.
Oh, nice. The pill.
We have
Fake tail?
We have the sugar-free way of keeping
Yeah,
calculations.
I also don't drink.
No.
I'm boring.
That's perfect.
Oh, yeah, you said I
Use
got
that
it.
all the time.
Well, you
Each word.
You know what they say?
There was a guy who took
Oh my God.
You know what they say?
Okay.
Do not accept unlabeled medication from somebody who doesn't drink.
I say medication is 20 milligrams of caffeine.
Nothing.
They're the most
That's-
amazing.
it's
things.
one of these-
I don't drink coffee, so it tastes bad. The alternative is
They're
sugar.
not, like, just the material that they're
Drinks,
made
which are
out of,
obviously-
like, you can hug
Yeah,
it
he says
for.
often.
Like,
There's
so
always this stuff.
Yeah.
That only has the potential to
I
cause
only drink
cancer,
like
not
fruit
very
tea,
bad.
obviously, that kind of stuff, so.
Firefox.
I went to my doctor. How many coffees have you had? About 3. I'm like, well, I've had less than that, so. Don't judge me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Well,
I guess
we're
about a year
really-
ago, I became really interested or sensitive about
Yeah.
HTTPS and
You guys can just go-
serving websites that I have and own and control over HTTPS. And I just pulled up this, I figured there was a page on the Indiewebcamp
Do
wiki.
you guys maybe want to
It needs
recap
to be
for the new
updated.
people in to tell them what you guys are talking about?
So yeah, we're just starting a new session on Let's Encrypt, the
Alright.
HTTPS stuff. So we've just previously been discussing.
If you look behind you, you'll see the hastily assembled schedule.
I wasn't sure if
We're out of order, actually.
you're still.
kind of, we're roughly following.
Yeah,
So,
it's live update.
Also, in case any of you have outstanding warrants, we are streaming this for anybody who can't show up. So just go like that if you're worried.
Oh,
yeah.
Or I could loan you a mask.
Even more appropriate to talking about encrypted communications. In case we're dodging spooks or whatever.
Are any of you worried about that?
None, but that's okay. So
Okay.
yeah, Ben told us a little bit about, you guys are working on it. It sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
And this should be
I wish I could
applicable
really
to any
contribute, but-
website, right?
Yeah.
There's gonna be some, like, does it get in the way of any,
No, I'll walk through this.
Well, no more than any HTTPS site would.
Yeah, and you know, I think there's been a lot of recent discussion, both politically about encryption, and we will talk about that, but I think also really coming from the W3C and some of these things about, you know, having HTTPS deployed everywhere. I think Zilla has actually been involved in all of that. And the wiki page here is actually really good because I actually didn't know about Start SSL, which seems very much very similar to Let's Encrypt in a lot of ways.
Well, it was sort of one of the first efforts to try to make this
Yeah.
kind of thing easier for
Yeah.
folks, and it didn't quite go far enough. But
Yeah.
the
You make
Yeah, let's
late
encrypt.
night phone calls from people in Israel asking to see your passport information?
Sure, I
Well,
guess.
Start SSL is an Israeli company. When they do their identity verification for, was it $59, they actually do call you on the phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess from my perspective, I've been a web developer for a long time, and SSL, TLS has always intimidated me, because it's like, I guess you usually get your SSL certificate from your domain registrar is typically the way you do it, and then you have to choose from a list of vendors, and it's expensive, and you're not exactly sure why it's expensive. And,
Long distance phone calls.
right, I guess that's why.
The verification, they have to charge something for it.
Yeah.
Let's Encrypt was started basically to make it as easy as possible.
Right.
To get a certificate and have it automatically updated.
Free as well.
Yeah.
So
So it's
I used to work. I had a client, Jersey City on Komodo.
okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. So they just like fucking print money, man. They got a digital certificate authority. You can. I guess there's a limited number of companies that get that.
Yeah.
If you haven't, they literally just like print money.
So Let's Encrypt is a new one, started by Mozilla with donations from a lot of other organizations. It is a certificate authority.
Yeah.
It's an authority. Yeah.
But it's
And
only
it is
a domain validation.
Printing
Okay,
certificates.
so they don't do ED or anything. It's just
No, it's basically, the idea is it's free because all they're checking is that you have control of a domain.
Right.
So anything above that, identity verification,
yeah.
you actually have to do work for.
Yeah.
Because the goal was just to get domains being encrypted.
Right.
Nothing else.
And like, look, for my personal website, I think for the purposes of the Indieweb, it's like, I think what you're describing is exactly the kind of intimidation factor that I face. Is like, wait, what's all this other stuff? Do I need to pay for this? How much is this? Am I getting the right thing? And so when I saw Let's Encrypt and it's free, and I saw lots of people talking about it, I said, okay, I'm gonna try to use this for some personal websites. So Let's Encrypt, is a free certificate authority. So it talks about, goes through how it works, and they have this Let's Encrypt client, and I'll pull it up. It's basically like this Python script, and it talks about this Acme. It says it's an Acme client. So Acme is this kind of service they have. It's an Acme protocol is basically a protocol for certificate authorities to use to automate obtaining certificates. So what's interesting to me about Let's Encrypt isn't just that it's free and it's this sort of kind of open public entity, and it's not like just printing money in New Jersey somewhere. But
It doesn't sound so bad.
My company's warehouse is in New Jersey. It doesn't necessarily print
I
money.
live in New Jersey, I'm printing money.
Yeah.
No hate against New Jersey. But what's interesting is that because it's this client to another server, you can automate the process of signing these certificates. So, like I said, I wanted to keep this very high level. I think both here, this sort of talks about how you would run the client, and the wiki, the Indieweb wiki also goes through, has like a good section here about using Let's Encrypt.
You don't have any problems with like browser acceptance?
No, although I think probably for some of the lesser Internet Explorer, maybe there's problems. But
Well, the first thing that they did, and they did that long before the client went out, is that they got their certificate into as many browsers as they could. So definitely Firefox, Chrome. I think Opera has it in there too.
I've had really no problem. Now, here was the challenge for me with using Let's Encrypt. So they add, it's in beta, so it's very much so a beta, and they ask you to clone their GitHub repository and basically run a script out of that clone. I'm using OS 10, and immediately there were like these warnings, like it's written in Python and it pulls in a bunch of other Python libraries and dependencies when it runs, and it was like, this might not actually work, and so it just made me nervous, and as sort of someone who programs all the time, I'm very like wary of large dependency trees because it just introduces ways for things to go wrong. But what Let's Encrypt also has, and I have a bit somewhere here, and I'll make sure it's here, is that in the Let's Encrypt doc, it talks about running this with Docker. And Docker is like a whole other, like, we can have a whole camp and then some about Docker. But this is what I ended up doing. Was using Docker to basically host an image to run Let's Encrypt. So yeah, let's try it and see what happens. So cool.
That seems crazy complicated.
Yeah, it's super complicated. It's complicated. The Python approach is probably way better, especially if you have a Linux machine somewhere.
New Jersey, actually.
Sorry?
New Jersey, actually.
Yeah. Yes.
That's where I keep my.
Yeah.
my
Yeah. It's a good place to setting. So yeah. Okay. Sure. So then, how do I use Docker? I always forget. Oh, I can just use it. So if I do, let's say.
Would you mind introducing yourself? There's a question about who is speaking.
Oh, hi.
I know you are, but they don't necessarily know you are.
Hi, I'm Mark Wunsch. I introduced myself earlier. I am here.
That was
presently,
part one.
and I'm M Wunsch in the IRC channel. I'll put my URL.
Oops, I mistyped it. Let's see this.
Cool. So, where was I? Yeah. So I'll just try to run this command and see what happens. It's been a while.
I like that.
Okay. Sorry, Docker. Yeah. You know what? I won't try to run it because obviously it's complicated and it's been a while since I've run Docker. But basically, it opens up this kind of curses-like interface. And what's interesting about Let's Encrypt is that you can do a few different things, and maybe the documents here will sort of walk you through it. But effectively, they have a bunch of kind of like pre-built modes. So like if you are running an Apache web server, you can get like the configuration for Apache and it'll sort of export to that. If you're running Nginx, they have sort of pre-built stuff for this. Yeah, so you can see sort of all these different, what they call plugins, which basically automates how the cert gets kind of created and where it is put. So because I'm running this locally, yes. So because I'm running it locally, but I was running it in a Docker container, I ran it with this sort of manual mode, which basically, as it says here, helps you obtain a cert by giving you instructions to perform domain validation yourself. And basically what ends up happening is you get these files that are these .pem files. So I'm by no means a cryptographer, but if you've ever used GPG or
SSH.
Yeah, SSH or something very similar to that. And so then what I did is this is a website that I host. This is a podcast that I neglect. But this is a Jekyll site that's served on S3. And I found this, let's see if I can find it in these tabs. Oh yeah, so this kind of interesting blog post about setting up Amazon CloudFront and S3 and using Let's Encrypt to do that. And basically it walks you through. So the challenge with SSL to me is that not only does it require all the steps of getting the certificates and getting them signed and making sure they work, but you also have to have a lot of control over the web server. And for a lot of hosted platforms like WordPress or Squarespace, whatever, it's
you know, you don't have that kind of access. So if you have your own Apache server or an Nginx server, you can have, it's easy, but when you're using something a little bit more complicated, it requires a little bit more love and attention. But basically,
not on which ones?
let's say you're using like a hosted WordPress. Maybe WordPress.com has some option for you, but because you don't have access to the WordPress.com web server, it's harder to sort of get these kind of SSL certs.
Doesn't WordPress.com do HTTPS everywhere anyway, or no?
They have
Not for your own domain.
No, they have a wildcard certificate for WordPress.com, so I think
Yeah.
the subdomains can be.
Yes, exactly.
Wix, like that's another.
Yeah, and you know, since we're talking about this, so my website is a Jekyll blog on GitHub Pages, and GitHub Pages has a wildcard SSL cert for everything that's on GitHub.io, but I can't actually serve my own web page over HTTPS because it's my domain on GitHub servers. I don't have access to servers, and there's if you just Google like GitHub Pages SSL or HTTPS, there's like convoluted ways of getting around that involve Cloudflare. But, you know, it's convoluted. It's not straightforward. But basically, this blog post kind of just walked me through. Basically, once you have these PEM files, what do you do with them? Well, for me. And I should say, to verify that I own the domain, one of the things that Let's Encrypt walk you through is this kind of challenge. And you put it in your well-known directory, which is, you know, lots of different services use the well-known directory on the domain to host little kinds of files and stuff like that. But basically, you can upload this sort of challenge, which is, you know, actually probably right. Yeah, so there's probably some string at the end, so there was an S3 error message, but there's somewhere in my S3 bucket is this directory that has this challenge where the Let's Encrypt server, as it's kind of generating its certificate, will look to that, you sort of input that file and say, this is where this challenge is. And sort of that's how it verifies that.
Are you using, maybe I missed this, are you using it on hardwatch.com?
No, on a different website, this abstractfactory.tv website. This is a Jekyll website that's hosted on S3, Cloudflare on Amazon.
Now, what is Abstract Factory about?
It's a podcast I host with a friend of mine. We just talk about technology, navel gazing.
Okay.
Navel gazing?
Yeah, navel gazing.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey and New York City. You know, it's pretty challenging, but like once you sort of understand, like you've got this tool, it's a Python tool, it's going to run, it's going to pull in a bunch of dependencies. You can choose to run it in a Docker container, which is what I did, which has its own set of complexities. You need access to your server that your domain is hosted on, so like the web server directly. And basically, you're going to take some of these files or take whatever configuration that's output and put them where your web server expects them. And then you can serve your website over HTTPS. That's exactly what happens. And the result is that here's this, and it says my connection is private. The identity of this website has been verified by Let's Encrypt Authority X1. No certificate transparency, information supplied. Connection uses TLS 1.2. Those are the kind of algorithms used to encrypt it. So yeah, I was really surprised, you know, when I put my sticker up on the wall. I didn't know that there was this HTTPS, like really great repository of information here on the wiki about doing that. So yeah, that's Let's Encrypt.
Cool.
And I think you know if you have the power to encrypt your website. I don't. I can only encrypt some of my websites. But if you have the power, meaning you have access to the web server, you should do it.
So you can't do it on markmuch.com because
GitHub Pages doesn't. I don't.
You can't have an install certificate basically.
Yeah.
So I'm just you're saying about wondering about whether to run the Python, whether to trust it. It seems to set up its own Python inside the virtual app, which seems, I mean, as trustworthy as download a bunch of code off the internet and run it.
I guess I don't.
They seem to do it reasonably nicely.
Yeah, I agree. It's not that I don't trust it, like in a kind of political way or a malicious kind of way.
Yeah.
But I've been burned by like having some strange C dependency not linked appropriately.
Yeah.
It's like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then when I ran it, and this was months ago when I ran it, it actually had some output where it said, warning, you're running this on OS 10.
Yeah, no, it's checking the operating system. There's like scripts in there for Debian, Arch,
presumably for some C dependency.
The idea is it's supposed to be easy, therefore the application itself has to take care of a lot of figuring out what the system looks like, instead of relying on you to do it, which is what you would normally expect in somebody who's trying to install a web server.
Yeah. But like I said, this was like really one of my first kind of explorations into SSL and HTTPS, and I got something working. I'm serving something over HTTPS, so it wasn't a total failure. Cool. Yeah, thank you.
I've got if I get cybersecurity wrong, so my friends don't have customers.
Are you getting any pushback? Let's say Crypt is getting any pushback from certificate authorities.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I think if you go to the
Well, these are people who wouldn't have bought certificates in the first place in any large number. Would you have bought a certificate for, let's say, $5 a year?
Yeah, probably.
More?
But it's just
that's you. But would most people have?
Yeah.
The whole point is making it so that people who would otherwise not buy them.
Yeah.
Well, there's another.
And automating it.
Yeah.
The automated renewal stuff looks quite interesting to me because, I've got like a 2-year certificate, and then the SHA-1 to SHA-2 change happens. It's like, was it on a 90-day basis or a?
Yeah. So Let's Encrypt. So their certificates expire in 90 days.
Okay.
So in March, I'm gonna have to go through this Docker container thing again.
Not necessarily, because
supposed to be automatic.
they have instructions on that. The intention is that your server will request a new one just before the renewal date is due.
Okay.
That's probably why the Docker part isn't as good, unless
Yeah.
your server is inside the dock also.
Yeah, but if you've got a Python stuff running on the server,
Then it's just a resident program. It doesn't
just runs on a cron script every couple of months.
Yeah.
And as long as the address it goes out to doesn't get compromised, it should securely.
Yeah.
But Moto could use the same technology if they really wanted to. The difference would be that when they renewed, there would be a billing.
Yeah, it'd be like $90. Here we go.
So they used to have a 90-day free certificate actually, which was DP, domain validated. But I think they just made it like a real pain in the ass for someone to get more than one. But there were people that did that.
But even just the little things like, I have a site and one person uses it in Chrome, it's an intranet site thing. One person uses it in Chrome, they're like, oh yeah, I've been getting these like security warning things. Why didn't you tell me? Well, you just press OK.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
So, as far as why you might pay for one,
You
what does it say in the little corner? I know most people don't look, but does it just, can you put your site name in there, or does it even give your address? Like what's the little lock icon look like?
What's the site? What's the saying?
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, what's the little lock icon look like? If you buy a certificate, like you can have your name there, though, like some of the registered certificates also you have to pay.
It's just the green lock icon.
It's just the green lock. It doesn't have the name or.
Nowhere does it actually say like who cited it.
Look at if you look at Indiewebcamp.com, https://indiewebcamp.com, you'll see an example of the green lock icon. It's not using Let's Encrypt, but I'm just showing you the same user experience.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it's a StarCom certificate, class 2. But if you're asking about that, we need a site that has a Let's Encrypt certificate.
abstractfactory.tv is.
What was it?
Abstractfactory.tv, I'm just looking at the details now. The certificate just says www.abstractfactory.tv, brackets digital signature trust company.
But, I mean, even like, when a client was asking me about
Yes.
certificates that included their
Does anybody buy?
the client was asking
When
about,
is there a time when you don't say yes to that?
was asking about if there's any, like, oh, they wanted to have, PayPal in their name.
TV.
And I'm like, you can pay the extra hundreds of dollars for that.
Yeah.
But then when I went to like the
That's
people
only the
selling
excuse
the
to take the
certificates,
cookies.
they hadn't done that. Like
Yeah.
on their own sites, it didn't even like say that it was.
No, I mean,
Oh,
okay,
whatever.
I'm getting a PayPal in Portuguese now. So I changed my browser to specialization stuff like that.
This certificate has been verified by the Let's Encrypt Authority X1 organization. Let's Encrypt.
Like, I think that
Expires March 3rd.
I think the thing with EV is if you take credit cards, get EV. If you're a blog, why bother?
Agreed.
Maybe for an airline, an SSL certificate as well.
Well, what it comes down to, any business should have it, because you don't. Are they doing that stuff?
Try a template. Same version, right? Please don't
I have no comment.
Yeah, I know. And I did it, yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that.
Somebody was actually joking that me and the other person should set up angry as a service. You just shout at your CTO about lack of SSL.
I remember our CTO. He made this video about how wonderful jobs were for technologists at the company and then resigned.
Well, maybe he wasn't a technologist.
We're using all sorts of state-of-the-art technology like MongoDB. No, he put this recruitment video out. And he was like,
MongoDB.
yeah. I'd like to see where they're using MongoDB because I'm using technology from the 60s, but clearly not my department.
MongoDB, I mean.
No, it was this hilarious.
I just have this vision of Amadeus backed by MongoDB.
But no, it was just this hilarious video. You know when you see a recruitment video for an organization where you know how the organization actually works? You think, okay, this is how they're trying to sell my life experience?
Right, what's next?
On the wall,
Data devices.
Didn't see your tweets. Oh boy, I'm gonna get
It's kind of the wrong way around.
Didn't attribute it to you, which is, which I don't know.
Oh, so you overheard it.
That's good.
Well, if they choose to look it up on the wiki, or if they do a search for that phrase, they will find the Indiewebcamp wiki, and then they can look at the history. It's all in the edit history.
Oh, we're just going to get you in big trouble with certain people in W3C. Because if so, that's fun.
They're my colleagues,
I
they
even
deserve to be trolls.
added a citation for the architecture astronomy assertion. So if you look at the RECP range 14 page, it says why it's on APOC with a citation. So it's not just like original research.
Yeah.
I'm getting pretty good at like making my point with original with citations so that it doesn't get like original researched or whatever. I don't know what the Wikipedia term for that is. Where stuff gets down.
It's generally called it tagged.
Tagged.
It's like a graffiti in the night. It's supposed to be called warning comments, but everyone just ends up calling them tagged, like my article got tagged. Cleanup templates, so that's what it is.
So, Ben, your first mission, since you brought guests, since you brought gate crashers, is to get them on the wiki.
All right,
Sign
sounds
up.
like a plan.
So if you have your own domain name, you're already pretty far ahead. So it should take like mere minutes to do. Right?
Very good.
Cool.
And Mika says hi.
We just separated from.
Oh.
Zip call.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. Is he around? Like, does he want to stop by?
He didn't. He took down the address, so
Okay.
I don't know when he knows what's going on for 2 days.
Okay.
But he didn't give any
I
guarantees.
get
Yeah,
the
that's nice.
feeling that there'll be a lot of people not having anything to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just a
There you
safe
go.
bet.
Yep. And we have space, so.
Is there a cod in case we get stuck here?
Cod?
Cod,
I don't know
cod.
if any fish. But,
Cod.
there's a couch.
And really, really fluffy Firefox.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any snow yet, though, so I'm sure it's.
No, it's tomorrow.
Oh, you mean if we get stuck tomorrow?
Yes.
Send it for everybody.
Well, someone.
You guys have agenda?
That means from their perspective, I think, right?
Yes.
From the audience's perspective.
Oh, my right.
Yeah.
Your right. That's Tom.
Oh, stage right? Really? Okay, I have to look this up because I thought it was the opposite. Let's,
Well, isn't stage right to the, from the perspective of the audience? So the audience is here, although we have a bit of a problem because on my version of the screen, the image is actually
Oh, wow.
flipped.
Log in.
You're right, Mark.
Right, so we're gonna.
Oh, yeah, it's like, it's the actor's right. From the audience.
How would you know?
Well, the reason that that's also confusing is
Oh,
because
it is, or?
upstage and downstage is from the audience's perspective.
Basically,
Yeah.
So, do we want to go to the next topic?
House left and house right.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay,
Device data.
cool.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Do we have a?
That's a good question. We have a link to
It's not
anything.
really- I don't know if it's
I've been trying to update the schedule. Links.
And all you need in order to have an Etherpad is to have a link to an Etherpad.
Like a second online.
Yeah, I have one, but I haven't touched it.
I didn't have much success being a stagehand. They put me on the lighting crew and I discovered I'm afraid of heights.
Let's at least broadcast the IRC here.
I can't stand on a catwalk for hours holding something up and feeling as if I'm gonna fall over the edge.
I
I was fine with lights on the ground.
I am afraid of heights. That's
It works for that.
I cried. I go in a what's called the
Oh, the thing over the Thames.
yeah, or whatever it is.
The cable car over the Thames. The silly thing Boston's supposed to do, right?
There's a cable car over the Thames.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over at
It's
the
lovely.
O2 Arena Formula. It's really fun.
Super cool. Super fun.
It's like £4 or something. It's quite cheap. You
I
can
just-
put it on Oyster
I just
Box.
can't look down if I'm doing that. My problem is with the intellectual realization of how far the ground is from me and how little is between me and falling to my death.
Very fun.
So I'm fine as long as I look straight ahead and don't think about it.
Control.
So it's I'm an odd stagehand, I'm enjoying this debate.
Who said that?
JG Mac. I did lighting in high school basically, and then
Well, so did I just couldn't be up.
and then afterwards, somebody asked me if I want to come and do a lighting thing for a pantomime, like children's pantomime.
You're establishing.
Pantomime with lighting.
Right. Just like spotlights and stuff.
But why don't they just mime it?
No, it's just from backstage.
I was sort of making a joke.
Spots. That's right. Yeah, okay.
They don't need props either. They just pretend they're a prop.
I got through 2 performances in one day. I was like, I can't take this job. I can't spend the next 3 months watching the same bad jokes.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah.
I was working, right?
When I was in high school, they put me in charge of a follow spot up in the, so it wasn't on the catwalk, it was at the end, it was actually a supportive thing to So we had two spotlights. One was a new one, and the other one was like a 1960s era one. It was on fire during 2 out of 3 performances.
Okay.
But I felt good because I was in a room with a carbon arc projector, which was outlawed in New York City in 1958. So.
All right, goodbye, Smith.
Okay, so I'm trying to sort of phrase or frame the solution or so I guess I'll leave let's put the Etherpad up here and see if that works.
I was actually going to ask, why didn't we think of that before?
Ooh, the font preferences aren't global anymore on Etherpad. It used to be if you switched over to monospace, it would turn everybody else's into monospace.
I think that might have annoyed people.
Yeah.
Alright, well, since
Didn't somebody say cookies?
Clapping.
Alright, the problem. Data getting stuck on our mobile or portable devices and data portability challenges. 2 specific recent examples. One, you were trying to transfer data from
Android to iOS.
Android to iOS.
Actually, we have the user in
And it was just a horrible experience. Just reading from Tom's blog post with all the
You guys know about my life.
with all the evidence. Just the tech support aspects.
I didn't actually mention you by name. I said somebody I know.
Well, I wrote a long and thoughtful response,
Yeah.
and you didn't even read it.
Sorry, I didn't see it.
Were you expecting I read this web mention in response?
No, he doesn't accept
I
web
don't
mentions.
accept web mentions yet because I'm a terrible person.
Well,
But I
I
mean-
found that out after I wrote the response that you weren't.
You can always just send me an email.
We could have those, right? And like that would be like read receipts on
Yeah.
SMS. Like imagine that you would comment and then you would get a notification back saying, "Oh, so and so read this," like read. Like, how cool would that be?
Seems like a vector for fraud. Like, oh yeah, I read that thing. I read that thing you wrote.
Well, no, but they have to post the read receipt.
Oh,
You can
okay.
verify the with web mention. That's the point. Like you could use web mention. We already have people posting read posts that say, "Oh, I read this book." So there's no difference between. It's just a URL. You could say, "I read this post," which could be a comment. And you send a web mention back, and the person would get a notification on their device saying, "Oh yeah, the author of the post read your comment." You're like, cool.
Well, see, this is the thing. It only means that they've opened.
That's useful, right?
But it only means that they opened your comment. It doesn't actually mean that they read it.
But they'd be active, they'd actually say, I read it. They might
It
be
means
lying,
they-
but at least someone's
Figure out how
bothered
many
to say.
seconds you think it would take him to actually read.
I'd like to send a read receipt on War and Peace.
It means that they actually post it on their own site that they claim to have read it, which is a pretty strong statement. That's the point. Rather than just like some random claim. Yeah. And yeah, you could lie about having read War and Peace or whatever. But the point is,
We all.
I've never lied about it. I have not read War and Peace.
I'm trying to find it.
experience with transferring data from Android to iOS phone. And then my recent experience with which is still like in progress with my my iPod Wi-Fi stopped working on iOS 9.2, and so getting the data out was a problem. In fact, data is now stuck inside a backup, and I have to figure out some way to extract it. So,
So when you say data, you mean like contacts, notes,
So,
apps, anything excluded from that?
well, what data do you care about?
that, which
Yeah, because I switched from iOS to Android. It was a pain.
you switched the other direction, iOS to Android.
I've done it twice. I went from Android, iOS back to Android. And now a lot of my
Thank you for
contacts, I
rejoining
have
us.
4 duplications of contacts, for whatever reason.
But actually, that was one of the main things. Is looking online, the support was all just fanboys arguing. I'm like, no, I'm trying to solve a technical problem here. I'm not trying to get into a religious war. Sorry.
I'm trying to remember what my response was. I'm gonna go look. This is gonna bother me.
The other thing with the contacts, OwnCloud, the contacts manager there, doesn't have anything automatic to build duplicates, but you can go thump, class duplicates.
one at a time. So
Right.
you got 1,000 contacts, it's not going to be much for you. But
And then how many times have you done that in your life? Where like you buy a new device or a phone, you import the contacts, and it's like all these duplicates show up. You're like, okay, I'll collapse them. And about the third time you do that, you're like, I'm done. I don't want to ever do this again.
I think what's interesting.
I actually stopped importing contacts for that reason.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just said, you know what? If I'm still in touch with someone,
That's what I do.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
I go contact
It's always
that.
that,
Done.
yeah, new phone.
Really, I'm the
Sorry.
opposite. I just finally removed my aunt from my contact list, and she's been dead for 5 years.
Oh.
Well, I got a picture there. But that's the alternative to it is you just keep everything. You don't, even though you don't have anything.
But I think there's a couple of things. It's not just about moving from phone provider. It's like moving from cloud to cloud is really, really hard. And then I think about when I think
That's
about
true.
my phone.
Yeah, I'm specifically talking about like the device problem. I think that's the point at which we need to solve it first.
Yeah.
And then move on from there.
Yeah.
So-
I would also say there's also like for me the big things that I think about when I think about my phone are like not just the kind of the data like what you've listed here, but also the fact that I have all these like authentication tokens basically. So it's like I'm gonna have to re-sign into all these services. I rely on 1Password.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like how like.
The 1Password's shitty on, like pretty shitty on Android. So
Yeah.
like, you're tied in now. Like, well, if I wanted to move to Android, I either have to switch to the password manager, or I have to put up with this fairly inferior product.
So you have contacts, SMS,
And then
so for me like text notes.
But you end up with the part of the problem.
the notes. The ones that are really big for me,
Photos.
the ones that are really big for me are the like location stuff, like the swarm.
But that's all online.
the notes is really for most.
That's true. That's true.
Most emotionally.
Running data. So I maybe
That's on my
running
next
data
plus.
is-
Yeah. And so we'll get to that with like.
But that's where the problem comes in. Every app on your phone that's gathering data,
That's
that's
a
a different company made it. They're all using the same system, but they don't use the same way of storing things.
Right. Yeah, and you also know that somewhere in here is like a core data or SQLite database that you can sort of tap into if you want.
Some of those are encrypted with passwords that you don't have access to.
Yeah.
Like WhatsApp.
Yeah.
The data in WhatsApp is all on Android. It's all encrypted.
Yeah.
And there's lots of like slightly sleazy software that you can buy that sort of has these websites which.
So you say WhatsApp data, is that like messages?
Yeah, it's basically
I don't use WhatsApp.
so it's basically just cross-platform iMessage.
So it's text.
Yeah, text messages, photos.
Oh, photos too.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
Voice messages.
It's just basically iMessage but for everyone at Android user.
Except that they require a phone number.
WhatsApp.
Yes.
And your
Yes, you
contacts.
do have to
You
provide
have to get
phone
your contacts with it.
But that's how it was on, because people were like, I can send you a text, this is going to cost me 20p or something. So
Right.
I'll just send you a
It
WhatsApp.
was a cross grade from a phone
Well,
company.
it's the same thing as call as well,
Even
because
if
you
you
can
can-
call
but-
anybody.
They're not going to be stored.
But if you look at
code.
statistics, WhatsApp is very popular outside of the United States.
Yeah.
Inside the United States, it actually has a much lower rate.
Great.
I've never even installed the thing.
Yeah.
Who do I want to talk to?
All you.
Who isn't in the
That's all they
RSH?
should do.
No, I'm going to go with who isn't in the RSH
No,
panel.
but you go somewhere like Brazil, it's everyone. They
Yeah, I
shut it
know.
down, and it's like 90%.
There was a scandal not long ago. They shut it down for a week.
Asia.
The
Why they
government,
shut it
about a month ago, they shut it down for 48 hours. Because there was a court case and Facebook were refusing to provide data from WhatsApp users to the court because it's encrypted and they don't have access to it. So the Brazilian government shut it down for 48 hours. And there were like memes of, there was like a picture of a man who was, sort of inside like a survival raft. And it just said underneath me without WhatsApp.
It might have you cookied as a user already, so it's not going to use it.
But that kind of stuff is.
They're trying to upskill and upgrade.
those
Okay,
messaging
so let's,
services.
who's had real problems recently besides three of us, I guess, apparently?
I've had problems.
With moving devices, with data, getting data off their devices.
I haven't had problems just because I haven't tried, but it's sort of, I've resigned myself that realistically,
You expect there's a future problem.
I'm never gonna get I mean, it's sort of like, it's sort of disheartening, but iMessage, for example, I'm never gonna migrate that from, if I switch to an Android device, I'm just going to lose my history.
Yeah, and I guess.
Like, I've just resigned, like, it's like, I'm not excited about it, but it's sort of, you know, it's sort of like a philosophical, like, kind of like, okay, well, I've made a decision to couple myself to use, like, to this particular platform. I guess I'm never gonna get to it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Actually, iMessage, I've just opened up an iMessage thread I'm in on the Mac, because you can get iMessage on the Mac, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like the whole thing, copied and pasted it, and it will convert plain text. The images don't come out, but it's a good start.
Well, there was, what was it? It was Ben Roberts who was trying to run every single communication source he had through his own server so he could log in himself and create a layer between him.
I think he's done it.
No, I know he was working on it and he had a sample. I don't know if it's fully baked. But
I'm more interested in like who's actually lost stuff or had a problem recently. So we can talk about concrete problems. Like there's an endless number of theoretical problems.
How about your-
So we have limited time.
If I would have, because what happened there was,
So WhatsApp you lost,
there
contacts.
Well, you've still got the phone, so you still have the phone.
But I
back.
deleted-
It's still stuck.
But I
Sorry.
deleted a lot of stuff in WhatsApp. For example, I lost those messages.
Those are all, you started from scratch. You still have the contacts, but you
I had-
started the contacts.
I
from
actually had deleted WhatsApp myself. However, I wrote it again, and when it came up, few messages, they were still there. Not
But
all of
the
them.
vast majority of the history is gone.
Absolutely, yes. But
And
there is this application that is supposed to transfer WhatsApp messages to iPhone, or just the text itself. There is also the contacts. How is called the app we used?
so there is an app for moving
From
Android to
Android
iOS
to iPhone. Yes.
that Apple make that you can install on Android,
It doesn't work.
and it's really shitty.
I trust it
That's-
that
yeah.
it would work.
that's really an endorsement. Oh, we've created this app to make it easier to move to our platform, but it doesn't actually work.
No.
Well, the problem is that a lot of people have a lot of. It's fine if you have virtually no data on the phone, but it'll crash in the middle. You'll lose the Wi-Fi connection, and it'll crash. You know, when it's transferred like 5 of your 15 gigs of photos, and then you go, oh shit, I better start again.
I'm more commenting on the fact if that's your first experience moving to another platform, you're not necessarily inspired about their software. If they're imported candidate or the thing that you're using to leave another platform to come to them.
So there are some third-party transfer tools, but they look sketchy.
Well, so you tried that, so I put that under your guide experience instead of under a possible solution. So my possible solution approach is this is all stuff that we're going to say, hey, we recommend this, or we're going to try this because we think it could work.
So-
Like we should document the stuff that hasn't worked above in the problem statement and why.
So-
and then, so
The
rather
solution
than like
to me would be to
possible,
like have an app that syncs everything to your server in a sensible way.
Well, I have that for photos.
Yeah.
I would never transfer photos between phones because as soon as the photo is taken and the phone next connects to Wi-Fi, the photo's backed up.
Yeah.
So I'll just pull it off of where it goes after
Yeah.
that.
So there's like Dropbox for that. There's
I have 4 of them.
4 of them.
It's like
I well, no,
iCloud,
because I set it to only upload during Wi-Fi, I'm not worried about the mobile data issue. So basically, the thing comes back to my house, and I have it running through Google Photos. I have it running through Dropbox. I have it running through the Amazon Cloud Photo thing because they gave that to me for free. So it's in multiple different places because none of them are charging me. So why not?
Not to brag about being European, but $25 a month unlimited data.
I'm aware. I am fully aware. I use less than 500 megabytes a month for the reason that that it costs me more for 25 for less than 500 megabytes a month than it costs you for gigs and gigs of data over there. No, we don't need more regulation in the United States. We don't need more competition. God forbid.
So, I mean, just put it out. So, Android's still pretty much open source. Sounds like you want to have some way to back up everything. I think maybe just focusing on Android, where all your apps, all your notes, all your contacts, everything's backed up. Probably just piggyback on the fact that that's still kind of open for now.
Well, right now, by default, built into a standard Android installation is that it's backed up to Google. However, it's very easy to put in another account management system, and an app could be written to send it in.
Right.
There are plenty of those that sync with other.
So like,
So let's add that as like, I'm going to be serious here, which is like, oh, write a new app. Like, that is what you just proposed as a solution.
well, it's really write apps for multiple platforms at this point, right?
But I'm going to be blunt, that takes a long time. And like, no one here has the personal time to take it on. So part of my question about this is, are there existing solutions people use or have used that do actually work even partially? And if not, are there alternative ways of using the device to avoid the problem completely? So, for example, I've been taking notes in like the Notes application, and one thing I could say is that like instead of don't use that application. And for example, as a alternative, use Gmail drafts. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I start trying to do that on my iPad, so I don't know how well that'll work, but theoretically it's safe to the server when the iPad connects. I don't know when, and then I should be able to just like look it up. I don't know if I can.
But you have, just to answer your comment about making an app, you don't necessarily have to make an app. If you have an app that takes that information and puts it into somebody else's service, you could write a program that would extract it from whatever the cloud service is, rather than you extracting it directly from the phone. Then it doesn't matter what device you're on, because you're not trying to back it up and keep it on the device. You're trying to back it up and keep it from wherever you already had somebody else put it.
Just to follow up on that, I just checked on my laptop, and the note that I had taken on my iPad and saved when I was offline did actually make it to my Gmail that I'm checking on my laptop. And the interesting thing is, I did not reopen the iPad and go into Gmail since it got reconnected. So it did something in the background that sent the draft to the server. So that's actually kind of non-sucky. I might switch to taking all my future text notes as drafts in Gmail, just as it seems to work. It seems to automatically show up in a place where it's trivial to pick it up on my laptop. So even if I have to wipe the device, I have not actually lost any.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's
the ideal situation is like 2 years ago, I was walking down the street, some guys on motorbikes just pulled the phone out of my hand.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, and the actual iOS backup thing was good enough that I bought a new phone and I lost one photo. Wow. Like, literally, it was, my phone was exactly as it was 10 minutes before I got robbed. So, literally, I lost one photo. One photo I took between the time it last synced and I got robbed. So that's, the backup side is okay. Mostly. There are a few things which don't get transferred over in the backup. Two-factor authentication tokens, which you could spend months sorting out.
Yeah, and
Authy has solved that problem.
Yeah, I used to
I have similar
Google
program.
Authenticator, but
Authy does a cloud backup with them, and then you have an offline password that you scribble down on a bit of paper, and keep in your safe deposit box. Or
I know one password, just starting to do the same thing, but like you said,
Authy works on Android and iOS, which is quite nice.
The one I use has the longest password I've ever created for a single thing.
Oh, this is passwords, not two-factor auth.
No, the password to decrypt
the
two-factor file is actually the longest password I've ever voluntarily created.
So
I think I'm at 48 characters for that one.
and say two-factor use Authy. The other thing people use for the photo stuff is people who pay for Photoshop and Lightroom. Adobe comes with 20 gigs of cloud storage, and you can set it up to automatically import everything from your iPhone camera, so it's all within your Lightroom library. And that's more for the.
And there are a variety of providers that offer that sort of service.
Yeah.
Where you can install an app on your phone from either iOS or Android that will automatically back up any picture you take. So I don't think photos necessarily are the problem. The problem is more proprietary data, where it's stored in a format. Photos are easy, contacts are probably relatively
Contacts,
easy.
the only real problem we found with contacts was when you have stuff that's on the SIM card. So you
People are
have
still
to
storing on the SIM card?
I don't know.
I thought it was less common nowadays.
It's less common, but there's still people do that for some reason.
Yeah, it's possible, and
No, it's possible. I'm just saying I thought it was not as common as it was.
It's not. If you're on iPhone, it doesn't store on SIM card at all.
do you have an option if you want to?
No.
You don't.
No, because they're like, why would you want to put it on SIM card? Because
Some
that's
people-
stupid. They kind of looked and thought, no, this is a dumb idea. Let's not do this. You can still do it on Android, on some versions of Android.
If you
But
just
then
want,
if you're transferring between phones, you then have to copy all the SIM
if you want,
contacts.
if you want this SIM card to go to another phone,
Yeah,
how about that?
but that's not that common a use case. The more
No.
common use case is
Right?
you change the SIM card in your phone because you're going abroad or whatever, and you still want to be able to call people. So
If you want to switch.
Well, the issue
That's
is that a SIM card is supposed to be an identity module. Storing
not a storage.
data on there just seems like a bad idea.
So contact, like the first thing is to say, right, well, don't use SIM for contacts. I think that should refactor it a bit. So
Limitation. Or is it self-protection?
it's a limitation in the same way that don't do other stupid things is a limitation. But the whole point is it's not really even a judgment. It's just saying if you want to solve this problem, you have to adopt certain behaviors or use certain types of software. And not storing contacts on your SIM is contacts, don't store on SIM, use card nav.
What? Oh, are we? Oh, I see. I see.
They're all kind of within the same.
So,
There should really be a wiki page where we document all this shit.
it is a wiki page. You're just
Yeah,
not
but
treating
wiki page,
No,
right?
no. Everything you type, treat it as if it's going to become a media wiki page, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what we do. We copy and paste into
Yeah.
Wiki afterwards. So type in, if you're that how to like format it, just use MediaWiki sometimes.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
Hearing this ding noise.
That's just a text message. So what else is there? There's WhatsApp. We haven't yet really found a way to solve that.
It goes back to the whole silo problem, which is these organizations don't want you to take your data out.
Well, also the problem there is, you have a silo problem, and also you have the problem of like 90 billion people using it, not 90 billion.
But this is also supposed to be a problem that markets don't be willing to.
Well, that's-
because they want people to migrate.
It's good hanging out for a bit.
Cool.
You guys
Glad
can
to-
put some
visit.
kick-ass stuff.
If you want to come back tomorrow, we're going all day.
Yeah,
So-
I'll be snowed somewhere.
Right? Might as well be here.
That's my problem.
Facebook is.
I'm not close enough to public transportation to be able to get here without a long walk.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the one who might have trouble getting here tomorrow or getting back.
Yeah, that's the real challenge.
See you guys.
Thanks.
So I might have to remote in tomorrow. Get back.
So what other things? I mean, photos either use image capture or sync them all on Dropbox or sync them all on a service.
Yeah, that's it. Windows.
I've been trying to replace Dropbox.
Yeah, so
I just haven't gotten around to it.
So I think that's a whole different, like, there's so much more to like cloud data portability that I actually don't want to even,
yeah.
like, I kind of want to punt on that. Because it's like, this is,
But
if
some
you
of
can
it
catch the
is-
data at the point that you enter it, which is always a device.
Hmm.
I mean, if you can change your methods so that it's always like safe at that point.
Sure, but like that's what people, that's so like I use Evernote because I don't trust the iOS Notes app to keep my data around.
So you're replacing one capture problem with another.
Well, no, the capture. I can get all the data back out of Evernote a hell of a lot easier than I can out of the phone. Because it has an API, which APIs, but
You still have to use their apps, right?
no, I can get an API key and get data.
Or you have to write an app.
Yeah.
Wouldn't this go back to making choices about what software you use based on how easy it is to get stuff out of it?
I mean, but that's the thing is that there's no like documentation of this is a good way of doing it, this is a bad way of doing it that I could point to somebody who hasn't got, who hasn't got a job in the industry.
Yeah, but by the time you have this problem of having to move stuff, you may have already embedded yourself into an ecosystem. So you may already be in WhatsApp and you may not be able to find a way to get stuff out of it.
But this is not a basic thing for Apple to sort out. Don't they want people to migrate to Apple?
Yeah, but they also want them to not migrate away to Android. So it's in nobody's interest to fix it, because if Google fixed it, it makes it easier for people to leave Android and move to iOS. If Apple fixed it, it makes it easier for people to leave
There's a
iOS and move.
Well, you have to understand there's a
direction.
philosophical difference in that area.
Hmm.
Apple is a hardware manufacturer,
Yeah.
primarily.
They want to sell shiny things.
Their interest is in selling you an iPhone. They want to keep you on it.
Hmm.
Now, on a Google level, Google is not really a hardware manufacturer. They care about people being on their software platform, but their software platform is merely a way to attain other
read
goals.
you. Yeah, to read you.
Well, they're an ad company primarily, although that's going less, focused over.
The problem is you can't really rely on any of these companies' business models to stick around
No, you
long
can't.
term. That's not a
I'm
solution.
still worried
to-
about the personal data I gave to the people at Radio Shack as in exchange for buying batteries. Which I still don't get how that was relevant, but
Even with cash.
they would ask for your zip code and all this other information, no matter what you bought there. So you buy a pack of batteries and they need to know all about you.
They asked my zip code when I bought a software file.
Let's just make up one.
No, I just pressed enter.
Okay, then it went on. Yeah.
That's why a lot of those loyalty programs have, since they work by a phone number, a lot of them have people who put in 555.
123, 123, yeah.
Or was it 867-5309?
I'm just catching a couple of things because syncing to cloud keeps coming up. So.
But why does it have to be? Why does it have to be Apple's cloud? There are other clouds.
It's one of the
Even
things
on
people
iOS.
recommend to use for iOS.
No, but it's like there's so much.
Well, look at me. I may go over. I may be considered overkill, but I'm syncing to every service that doesn't cost me to sync to it. I'm dropping my data wherever I can. So somebody has to have it if I get lost.
BitTorrent sync might be the other solution.
But that goes back to the cloud question, which is outside of the scope. Which is BitTorrent sync is also
It's syncing to your other computers.
Or other devices, period.
Yeah.
I mean, phone to pad to
Yeah.
laptop. I mean, I don't think you can get away from, when you're dealing with the phone, Yeah, BitTorrenting is about as far away as you can get from cloud. It's that or cloud. There's not too much.
Well,
That's practical. We don't hook things up.
You've only got really 3 options. Take the SD card out if you're using Android, plug it in, or sync it
SD what?
Right, so
It's safe with the wire.
I'd like to point out very few Android phones still have SD cards.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which has led to a lot of fighting on the Android side. How it was. By the way, my phone does actually have it. My previous one didn't.
There's just the other issue with iCloud was the health security vulnerability stuff they had with not the celebrity photos, but the person who Apple gave them access to his iCloud because they managed to get the last 4 digits of his credit card number from his Amazon account.
The socially engineered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that, Matt Hoden?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so put that under the iCloud.
Yeah.
Why not iCloud?
But this is the thing, every one of his services has this loophole because the idea is that the person on the other end of the phone who's asking you security questions wants you to succeed.
Yep.
They have that, like, even though they're supposed to be saying no to you if you fail one thing, it's, oh, you don't know this? Why don't you answer this question? You don't remember what the answer to that is? Well, it starts with a 1.
I do think OwnCloud is worth a mention because they do have clients for Apple and Android.
Interesting.
So
Do you use it?
I use OwnCloud. I don't have any Apple devices, but I do use it on my Android. And
What is it syncing right now? Because I was considering setting it up.
So I actually haven't installed it myself. I'm in a part of like a progressive cooperative hosting thing called May 1st PeopleLink, and so I'm using the OwnCloud account that they set up for their members. And
I'm saying, what is the phone capable of syncing to OwnCloud? Supported by their
same as
app.
Dropbox type stuff, you know, so it's got files and then contacts also, which is what I've been searching for Android. After someone was doing contacts and then they stopped doing it.
You run OwnCloud on your own server?
It May 1st PeopleLink runs it on behalf of the
you
members.
could.
I could, totally could, absolutely. It's totally free software, we totally run it.
Well, every time I go to a Linux conference, they always have a booth there. They're pretty good at that.
There's free OwnCloud hosting you can get. Like there's companies you can pay just to run OwnCloud for you.
Yeah, but you can totally install it. So, and they have mobile apps for
On
Apple.
What was this? It was a small community
that I'm with. Or
that your OwnCloud.
is on May1st.org. So you can get a membership there for $100 a year.
Yes, Ken, didn't somebody say something about cookies?
You say yes.
What?
Didn't somebody say something about
Yeah,
cookies?
they're over there, but I want to clean up this, so they're not like eating
Oh, okay.
these on top of sour cream. On top of.
Okay.
I remember I had a really good cookie recipe on sour cream. I made it soft.
Oh yeah, I make banana bread with sour cream.
Oh yeah.
Should I just?
You have banana bread?
No, I didn't.
Start mentioning food types while I'm up here.
Sorry. Some brownies.
Oh
Wow. Someone pass a brownie.
Some
Do you have any blondies?
harvest cookies. I wasn't really sure what that was. And then their last 2 chocolate cookies. I'm taking half the chocolate cookies.
I will take half.
Okay.
So the other weird one that I have, and this is just all like, where are my pain points? So I use the Starbucks app out of convenience, and I'm pretty sure, haven't tried this yet, but I've taken screenshots of the pay screen with the weird QR code they have on there. I'm assuming it's a fake QR code that just has the ID of the card and some magic whatever. And I'm going to try paying next time with just the screenshot instead of the app. If that works, then I don't need the app anymore.
Yeah.
Because they'll just tell me, oh, you're out of money. And I'll just say, what's that?
Have you tried it?
I haven't, but that's what I'm saying is this is a prospective solution.
You need to try it.
Yeah.
When you're out of here.
I have my supermarket loyalty card, but it doesn't actually work. So
Well, the scanning has always been the issue with barcodes. The newer barcode scanners actually will do it, but the older ones have always been problematic. But I found a solution. My local supermarket stopped at, got rid of loyalty cards. So one day they said, you don't need that anymore, we don't care. And that was wonderful until a day 3 months ago when the supermarket went out of business and a new supermarket came in that had loyalty cards again. Everything's cyclical. So what else was over there? I'm still hungry.
What's going on?
There's still
There's a lot of Mexican food.
No, I know what's on the table in front
So
of me.
now, okay, there's these like oatmeal looking cookies.
Oh, I love oatmeal.
Something you love.
What?
And there's still a fully formed chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah, okay, I give you that.
Here, I'll just put this.
So it's not chocolate?
Not chocolate chip.
Oh.
I'm not
Would you
chocolate.
like this? Here's half a chocolate chip.
Did you give yourself a half at least?
A whole beer one.
Oh, here.
No, please, I was really happy with my great one.
Oh, okay.
I like beer. I'm here. I do this thing.
So,
We still have coffee from this morning, right?
And there's coffee in the,
great idea.
in the coffee thing.
So I think it's a good start. I don't know. I feel like I've gotten enough suggestion and feedback from people to try some of these approaches and to see how far I get because
I'm just
I
waiting.
think the really challenging one here is the iMessage and the text messaging sort of class. Like, yeah, it's like if you're using iMessage on your Mac, but I think that's the really challenging.
What messages do you people want to keep anyway, out of curiosity?
sometimes they have photos.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying in general. I always thought of text messages as rather fleeting to begin with.
Until they're not.
Yeah, until they be quite important sometimes.
I only text when people
I
call
think,
me, I text them back and say, can't talk.
I think there's also there's something like Time Hop, which is not like this, but it kind of is, which is Time Hop is an app that reaches out to all these other, you connect to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Dropbox, I think, and every year it posts what you published the year before.
So like on a given day or something.
Yeah, so it's not like a backup app, except it kind of has to be on its back end. I mean, it's you can't they don't have an API that you can call into. But having something like that sort of keeps like you connect to it with a bunch of other third-party services, and then it just keeps it running in the background. I think that would be the ideal thing too. If you were going to build something.
Is that for me?
It's cold.
Oh, okay.
There's no.
I can, there might be one copy in there, and the other one I'm gonna go try out.
Yeah, one that,
Oh, I can look it.
you got busy there.
No, it's okay. You should have to.
Come on, don't worry, don't worry.
Someone can take over notes first. I'm trying to look up backups for Whisper Systems Signal app because that's cross-platform and the most secure thing out there as far as I can tell. But given their emphasis on security, it seems backups, although there are various solutions floating around, there's not the portability is not a high priority.
Well, this ends up being the problem.
Hmm?
The company doesn't want you to back things up either.
Well,
Because they're doing it.
No, I mean,
I don't think
they're
Signal has a
more,
problem with that.
Yeah,
But-
I really don't think Signal has it.
except that their emphasis is on you not accidentally exposing your data. So, they
Yeah,
have
if
to
you
work
say,
extra hard to make sure you don't.
Here's your data, do with it what you want. That's when it's not there.
I mean, in
Telegram, that's one.
in some cases, it also just looks like, do we provide a list of known places to find SQLite databases? So going back to the iMessage thing, I found on the Apple Stack Exchange site, at least on your Mac, there's a folder or the Messages app under your library folder, your user directory, which contains a SQLite database, which doesn't care. It looks like it's a pain in the ass to parse.
Yeah.
But all the attachments are there.
Pain in the ass is a huge improvement on impossible.
Right.
Well, this is the same problem with actually WhatsApp. There's a SQL. If you're using WhatsApp on iPhone, all of that is stored in unencrypted SQLite on iCloud. So as long as iCloud, you can get all that data out on a Mac. So
Yeah.
it's also sent to iCloud.
What if you were using iOS? Probably could still back it up manually to iTunes as well.
With Android, you can. It's just encrypted, and that's a pain in the ass to decrypt it. But actually, all the images are still unencrypted on both platforms, which is nice.
So I have to ask only in a timekeeping sense. What time do we want to end this discussion?
I think we should just cut it off because we have more sessions, and we could go on probably forever about this.
More
but,
session.
What?
More session.
No, I said I think we should just cut this off.
I'm saying I think we only have one more.
Oh, I saw 2 sticky notes.
Yeah, it's a long description.
I have a few more things to the Etherpad, brain dumped. Someone said the really challenging problem is iMessage. Who said that? You say that? Okay, yeah, I agree. And then especially across various devices. And then I added to really challenging problems after your device is offline. So that's a particularly tough state. With photos on an offline iOS device, you can actually, and videos, you can actually retrieve all of them with image capture on the Mac if you can connect your cable, your iOS device to your Mac. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but there's nothing like that for notes.
Right. So there's no notes capture. So like why not? Right. Like there's no notes capture. Why not? And I'm going to throw out a hypothesis here and see if anyone can debug it. My theory is that there's no notes capture because, all right, there is image capture, and there's no notes capture because the images on your iOS device are stored in the file system as individual files. So image capture was pretty easy to write for Apple,
right?
Which was like, let's talk our proprietary protocol, look at the file system, and just get the images directly from there.
Yeah.
The Notes app on iOS, I'm going to hypothesize stores notes in a SQLite database.
Yeah, I would
on the actual device itself.
Yeah.
Is this where you get your flat file?
Yeah, and therefore it's it's just enough more work for Apple to have written an app to get your notes out of your device directly that they haven't bothered.
Yeah.
That there is no notes capture.
Also because
not only that, but I bet it's
Notes was synced. Notes is iCloud based, and
So are photos.
yeah, but that's a long. Photos has been a thing that's been lurking around a long time. So they've changed. Photos hasn't changed in behaviour. So
Calendar.
calendar's relatively easy. You should really be.
But I think you're right. I mean, I think the difference is really saying ls, a directory, versus actually going into a database. And I think not only is it probably complicated by the fact that those things are stored as in SQLite, but it's not just that they're using SQLite, they're using core data, which is that crazy API around SQLite that syncs it to the cloud.
Anyway, that was my theory, and I just wanted to get that down as to why there's no notes capture, and that's why.
Yeah.
So image capture was easier to write.
Yeah.
So I've just decided to.
Same thing with contacts, right? Why can't I just contacts capture and open them up?
Yeah.
And calendar, right?
Oh yeah, some of the contacts came to iPhone without the email or all the notes involved in it, like the addresses and what was in the. It was not synced. Some probably That's illustrating.
I was using
Okay.
Apple's move to iOS.
Nice. All
You
right,
have to use
so
your email capable.
we have some solutions to some of it. Others of it, we still have problems pending.
I'm going to add BitTorrent sync because that's used somewhat useful.
Ideally, and let me just I guess I'll write about that. Ideally, I'd like a device to auto sync everything with my personal site that I control. So feel free to dump your idealies there.
So do you store contents on your site right now?
I don't.
Is that something you want to do?
I would trust them more there than I think Apple's cloud.
Is that Google?
I would like to hear that.
And
So
supposedly OnCloud will let you do this.
BitTorrent sync does a little bit as well because you can get it to sync all of your photos to your computers, plural. So you can have it so that, like, if you've got two computers, they will, whichever one is online, it will sync to.
But does BitTorrent sync run in the background on your device, on your iOS device?
I don't know.
So that's what I'm talking about, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is how do you manipulate stuff on your device or phone, and
I remember looking at BitTorrent sync a while ago. Very cool.
It's fast. It's pretty good. I haven't tested any seconds.
so I think that would be cool. If I would love to a year from now be somehow using my mobile devices in such a way that whatever content I create on them is auto sync to my site privately in some totally encrypted way, obviously.
Yeah.
And that way, if I ever lost the device or have to reset it, should be just the way, just reconnect my device to my site.
Yeah.
So.
That would be, just imagine that as a mobile UI. You turn on your new phone, you type in cantech.com, you press enter.
And first it auths you in.
Yeah.
So it does the whatever idiot dance. And then it's like, oh, you are authorized.
Nobody wants to rent this though.
The site. And then the device goes, give me all the stuff.
Well, you have to sign in for an iPhone with iCloud, you have to sign in with Android with a Google account in order to get most things done.
But it's not required.
Not required, but
You could install apps that would allow other accounts.
sure, yeah. And there's F-Droid and all that stuff, but in practice,
Yeah.
for the average person.
Well, I'm still waiting for a full set of indie web apps for Android.
Yeah.
The closest we have is Mobile Pub, which is.
I did find an interesting one the other day for iOS, which is called something, I had noted it down actually, called Memail, which is a thing to send automated emails. So you've got a pre-canned email and you just push a button and it sends it somewhere. Like a template of email, which seems like a nice hacky way to get halfway there. till we get actual apps.
Well, what we need is to look for an app developer and aggressively recruit them to this community.
We're all app developers, right?
I'm referring specifically to a mobile app developer, somebody who is motivated to create something like that. Because every time I ask if anybody in this community wants to create that type of app, I always get, no, I'm not doing that.
It's going to be one of those, if you want it solved, do it yourself.
I don't want to learn Android app development solely so I can write one app that does one little simple thing.
But so then, why think of it as just an app? Maybe you can use a web app to do that.
Background sync.
Well, the one I wanted was share intent. I wanted to be able to press the share button on any app and be able to send that information directly to my site.
Yeah.
And
Pretty sure Ben Wordmuller and Ben Roberts have that working on Android already. So you need to ask them, IRC, how do you do that until
Publish
they
the app, yeah.
until they have explained it in clear enough terms that you can replicate it and then document it.
well, Ben Roberts was using MobilePub, which was his attempt at a micropub
I
client
think,
using what
yeah,
was it? What's that thing? It starts with a C. It's
PhoneGap or whatever it's now called.
yeah, but
Cordova, yeah.
but I can never get the thing to work reliably.
Yeah.
But I don't even need anything that complicated. I could have it done on my site if only just hitting share would send the data somewhere to my site.
Sorry, I'm loving the Google search results for mobile pub.
Yeah,
Like, it's a pub, you can...
You can take it anywhere.
Yeah.
Isn't that a flask?
is micropub a small pub?
Like it's a pub, but in the form of an old London bus, and they'll just park up and serve you beer.
I thought micropub was one of those artisanal ones.
That's microbrew.
I spent entirely too much time on one of those things.
Just that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we are down to 0 viewers.
Okay, we've bored them all.
Maybe they're planning on watching it on the replay.
Okay.
They
future.
they can. Well, no, 3 days from now, it's, why were you scratching your head? Were you trying to send a signal to the people?
So,
Does this bring us to the final topic?
Or do we need like a short break? I
don't know, do we
I need
want-
like a mental 5-minute break myself.
Okay, it's now 4:23. How about 4:30? We'll make it
Yep.
on the half hour. Because I don't necessarily need a break so much as I'd like to stand up. Unfortunately, in the corner
Before you
here,
reveal David Chansky, please stand up.
I don't know about it.
That's why I'm asking.
I love the thing with the Apple Watch, it now can stand up every hour, which is fine, except when you sprain your ankle. It's like, please stand up. I'm like, no, I can't.
I have this.
Please stand up.
I have this Android-based watch, and the Android-based watch just tells me how wonderful I'm doing with my activity. Oh, you walked for 2 minutes today. That's so great. You didn't achieve your goal of walking for more than 2 minutes, but may I get by it? Is it? I want to stretch. The problem is not that the seats. The fact, because there's a wall behind you, it's really hard to just sort of stand where you are without moving the person next to you. Maybe we need to take out some of the stools a bit. These are more actual. And we're still recording this, so this is the point where you can fast forward. I still have my Apple laptop over there.
Exactly, yeah, it's like without a reason, I can't give it.
Are you leaving early? Wherever you want. Possible.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the things we were just talking about. So NCloud was nice to have.
Yeah, you're talking about it, but didn't seem to me that was something.
We have an enterprise edition.
Oh, it's a microphone.
This is, well, you've heard how much that thing is up. I can hear you. These are omnidirectional master devices. That's not a cable in the middle, I have about 10 radius around.
This one's going to do that too, it lines up.
So you cannot, on your web page, you can open a cyber page.
It's more that you'd host it on your own server.
The laptop.
Retros, features.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Forget this next, not smart, but like, that area.
But I want to learn how to record Indiewebcamp, so I want to have it.
Files, folders, contacts, guides, condoms.
I want that.
Encrypted, versions, activity, so kind of Dropbox style.
That's for, that isn't.
And you can put a extra security layer on its passwords. Second.
That's the basics here. Don't know about the security side of it.
You don't have to discover this wrinkle of this, that he doesn't actually.
Use HTTPS, which
He has
is
a hotspot, and then
Second factor
So,
authentication.
wait,
I have to look at.
and you, what do you want to say?
I'm good for now. Thanks.
Do you have class calls, like, and all of your calls? Why do you have that phone call?
Because I built that phone number, and the phone number is phone call, I'm getting calls. My family switched over to calling me.
Oh, YubiKey based.
Like,
And
this
then
is
what's
you actually diagnosed the operating.
No, it was the other way around.
Again.
I adapted because I changed because
Or OTP actually.
they started calling me, their, my parents, and sisters, and my nieces and nieces, my nephews and nieces, all started calling me on FaceTime. Like, they adopted FaceTime as their stop. And then, basically, in 3 months, I was like, what phone calls I'm getting? I don't think I want to.
So interesting. Do you remember overall?
After the hotspot, you can get a hotspot from a
So like I have one for Australia, I used to have one for UK.
Well, we just have a GSM one, say whatever, SIM card.
Yeah, I tried that too, that's like, it was what paid to get a SIM card, very interesting.
Oh, really? I took care of that. Problem was, I just, you try to talk to somebody in Italian. I don't speak Italian.
No, we
Although my Italian cousin got very good on my behalf.
So I'm just using free, like free running.
Like, I like to do calls with my mom. But that's the rest.
Oh, there they are.
But it has to be working. But it's just to keep forward.
I wanted to make sure before I forgot I got my authentic was in the water bottle.
That's another reason I switched is that I'm not using a phone number, I tell people, just call me or FaceTime or whatever. So where that Wi-Fi works, so when I'm overseas, I don't need to tell people that I'm overseas.
What about services that require a phone number? Oh, what's that require? Not
So I will show you the UI that when someone asks me my phone number, I say, it was smart. And then go to company.com/contact. Actually, page.
Pretty much categories that I could figure out at the time. I'll actually edit past stuff there for PBS. The three videos that I can run
A lot of different things. Yeah, every time I try to log into my cell phone.
my cell phone won't let that me because it won't import it. So I can actually create it. You can send me using that 500.
Well, including on the video stream.
No, that's the computer. I'm saying the solid platform won't give me the portal.
The devices and accounts is expired.
Yeah, it's
Oh, I remember if it's really.
It has to issue at least until the 10 people their own. That's also. And this, you have to fit it like 4 minutes. Each one takes 45 minutes. That's one of the 10 days. 4 minutes in there, 2 days.
And are you running Linux?
Is it?
What's that? Are you running Linux? In Linux, yes. This is Debian Mint, or Mint Debian Edition.
How does that mean?
I'm always curious about
Pretty good. At one point, a web development cooperative, we were 4 people at the time. One of us, she was using Fedora. One was on pure Debian at the time. He's since moved to Mac OS X. One person was on Windows, and I was on Ubuntu, or no, actually, I think I was the one on Mac, and back then, and my other partner was using Ubuntu. Yeah. Operating system interoperability worked pretty well.
Good, that's good.
I'm saying, no, it shows you like 6 different options.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that.
I know there's a secret link for the free version of GNOME, but it's like been made super secret.
Maybe go to the next step.
Yeah, and we should get options for the problem is most of those do not work out.
So I can be done with this.
home screen.
Yeah, you
Hold on, you should. What the?
It hates me.
It does hate me.
Of course.
I do realize that there's okay, I'm just pointing it out. I was labeled a co-organizer, I have to organize something. I succeeded in organizing video. I actually have enough in the back to organize 2 additional video.
I have t-shirts.
Do you have anything in XLT?
I have XXXL.
Oh, 4 X's? But do you have a T?
I have a 3XL.
3XL?
It's pretty big. I actually think I have a couple.
3 or 4?
Okay. This is XL. This is 2XL. This is 2XL. This is 2XL. This is 3XL. This is XL. And then I have all other sizes.
But nothing in a T.
What's T?
Extra long, tall. XL.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Although Sean is taller than you and he does the 3XL.
Okay.
That would be a 4.
No, just 3XL.
Oh,
I'm going to say it again.
What t-shirts
You want a 4?
What size?
You have a medium?
Yeah,
So,
those aren't them. I have the other box.
I'll try the 3 then. I guess.
where's the 3?
I think it's the same,
So those are all the small ones there.
So in exchange for getting a Firefox t-shirt, do I have to tell people all about Firefox wherever I go?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
This color
Well, I wear
is
t-shirts in my house while I'm walking around. I don't expect to have anybody there to talk to about Firefox.
meeting?
You can try it on.
That Firefox line.
Large. Medium.
I'll go try this.
Anything else? Anyone else?
Yeah.
These are the,
Those are
those are
XL
those.
plus
I'm looking for XL.
XL, you can get the regular navy, yeah, if you want. Those are colors, you can say these shirts didn't come.
Small and medium.
So what other Firefox related swag is available? We have like hats.
Yeah.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, what about that
Not
snap?
sure the Lenore is branded with Firefox.
I did that, I was like, I don't need to offend anyone. It's Christmas trees in the back, and everyone
Wow.
gets to pick their own ornament.
Why would anybody,
Because some of our
why would
ornaments
anybody be
may be
offended by
offended.
electric?
Maybe some of our ornaments may
I thought
be
it, is it, I thought you said it was Firefox branded before.
Yeah, I'm super
I know.
curious.
Because that would be
Anyone else want
amazing.
I'll take a Firefox branded menorah. That I do.
Did everyone get one?
I got
Did you get one?
Yeah, yeah, I've got one. Yeah.
actually one of them.
But next time, can I put in an order for a hat?
I don't have any.
No
I don't
hats.
think they have hats.
Hats?
I don't think
Come on,
so.
look at the weather. This is certainly hat weather. I'll just have to live
What size did you take?
with my.
3?
3X? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just have to live with my unbranded balaclava.
Has anyone been to a Red Hat conference? Do they give you fedoras?
They've never given me a fedora, and I've been to Red Hat conferences.
Only if you
Missed
sign in with your Reddit username.
I have a fedora, but it's not red.
I have these. I have stickers. I
I
have
have stickers.
pins.
So you have like no
Are we
non
contributing to helping you clean out your
I have
closet?
this crazy cool bag if anyone wants it.
Ooh, yes, that looks really nice.
That's kind of cool.
Thank you.
What was in between stickers and pins?
Stickers are less dangerous.
Ooh, these fun things that we got made for a conference. The puzzles.
I will take a Firefox puzzle.
These are very limited, so one day you might be able to sell them.
That's what they told me about my JetBlue
Well, it's like
snow
the
globe. but
Pez.
Nobody's
It's like the
ever made me an
Pez,
offer.
you know.
There actually was a startup
Nobody
many years
thought-
ago called Schwagster, I think it was called. And you pay the subscription fee, and they go to like Valley conferences and pick up swag and send it to you.
That's so funny.
I wanted to start up a European one, call it Europe
Oh,
Swag.
I was in Mexico. We went to Mexico last year, and the amount of people that just were like, "Can I take?" And they take handfuls, and they're like, "You don't even know what this is." And you're an old person who got it for free, and it's just taking. You're just taking.
Well, it's what we call free advertisement. If you give anybody who wants one a T-shirt and they wear it and they walk around in public, they're advertising your product.
But we didn't give out the T-shirts. Those are too expensive.
Good.
Well, thank you for appreciating it.
Do you want to sign that?
What did you want?
Real large. I had one. I just hold on. It's here.
Yes.
Come on, give the L.
I hope I'm going to be able to get down here tomorrow.
I have a funny feeling.
If not, you're going to have to see me on the screen.
I have a funny feeling that the
One of us can
session
handle
on
video.
location may have just turned into a swag fest.
I still want to talk about location.
Yeah,
What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about?
Well, a project I wanted to work on tomorrow involved basically adding venues. So all a venue basically is a safe location.
Yeah.
Safe store.
Like, would it be a post type then?
Well, actually, I wanted to try something a little different. Taxonomy term meta, which just came out in the last version of WordPress. So it's actually a way to do it without that. Because a venue is basically, you don't really need much more than a name and address of a coordinate. It doesn't really need a post type.
Yep.
So, but I couldn't do that in this version. So I didn't.
So Meta just takes a block of JSON, or wait, what do you?
Well, basically, they now have a term meta table in WordPress.
Okay.
So basically, you could always have a custom taxonomy. And now that taxonomy can have metadata. So basically, that works out perfectly for a venue. I don't care about a venue page. My venue page is really an archive page. It just shows me a list of venues, of check-ins or uses of that venue.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it was actually,
Taxonomy is exactly what you want.
except it wasn't possible until last month. So the earlier version of the code doesn't do anything. It just does location.
But the same concept would be implementable in Drupal at least, and probably now other content management systems.
So I want to completely rewrite that code to basically store each location as a venue. And then, get the location, compare which venues are within range of that
I
location,
took one. Yeah, thank you.
and then work from there.
So the way I've been working on locations is, so on my personal site I have a section called Places, which is where I kind of put like kind of Time Out, Lonely Planet kind of micro reviews.
Okay.
So like I've only got UK stuff in here. So if I go into like London, what can I go into here that's interesting?
Have you ever been to any of these sightseeing parts of London, or is it just?
They're just like restaurants.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is this like?
I went to an interesting burger joint.
Or like, how would you?
No, these are just like reviews. They're more like just a post that's a review. So it's just like restaurants. I need to add types. Because currently it's just like this is like a hipster board game club in Hackney, which is a thing now.
Hackney or a hipster board game club?
Sorry, a hipster board game. Yeah, it's like a place you pay £5 and you can play board games all evening. So no, it's just like their little micro review, but they have a lat long. The editing interface is just a name, a body, a type, which is just a string that appears up here that says like Eritrean restaurant in London. And
London is missing more Ethiopian.
there's only like 3 Eritrean or Ethiopian restaurants in London that are any good. So. It's exactly. After visiting Washington D.C., I fell in love with stuff. Yeah, no, it's just a body, a type, a lat long, and a reference to OpenStreetMap.
So this would work for what I was thinking of doing in terms of the number of fields.
Yeah, so that's just a pointer to the OpenStreetMap object, which might contain more useful metadata. I try and add useful metadata to it. So. That's not.
Where is that?
That's not where it's. That's because my browser is broken, and for some reason it shows me somewhere like I don't know what the fuck it is. It's somewhere in the U.S. Fayetteville,
Arkansas.
Yeah. It just defaults to opening there. There's some problem with cookies or something. Let's just try another browser.
Why would anything default? Or actually, no. Is that Fayetteville, Arkansas, or North Carolina?
I
Look like Arkansas.
I think it's
We
Arkansas.
hadn't gotten toast yet.
It gets really annoying. So I'm like, how do I get to this restaurant in London? Oh, great, Fayetteville. I don't know what else going on here. So anyway, let me just pull up an example. No stop, right, there we go, that's the actual. Right, so it just has like amenity restaurant. These are just key values. So cuisine, African, name, those are the Outdoor seating, no. You sometimes have a full address field in here, phone number. So it depends how much people have contributed. So that's kind of, let me see if there's any more interesting example. I'm pretty sure I had some.
Hummus Brothers? Who comes up with these names?
Hummus, it's a restaurant that serves hummus.
No, I'm saying Hummus Brothers.
Yeah, it's a restaurant owned by two brothers.
And they make hummus?
Yeah.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
I know.
So here it has like actually some useful data like the website, whether it's wheelchair accessible or not. It's a nightclub, go figure. So there's different stuff in here that could be pulled in from that at some point, but I'm just kind of linking out to it at the moment. My current, the new version, I'm setting up like a location thing, so I could actually do like United States. I'm not going to put anything in there other than that just for now. And then I could actually say like New York. Oh no, I need to spell New York, right? Yeah. And say that's within.
Just like Old York only.
So you see now it's like indented underneath. And then I'm going to have New York City.
Are you documenting on the Etherpad?
No, because I'm demonstrating at the moment, but I will document all this.
Is somebody documenting on the Etherpad?
So then the idea of here is I could actually have venues. So I can then add a venue in a particular place. So I'm going to say Times Square. And then that's going to take quite a while to zoom over that. And for some reason I seem to set London as the default map location.
Why would that be?
Who knows? Ideally I'm going to have some like JavaScript that looks it up and has a guess where it is. This is just kind of rough and ready at the moment.
Are you talking about the geolocation?
Yeah.
Like you would look it up in OpenStreetMap.
Yeah. So I don't know where the best place to drop a pin for.
I would go like a little bit. It's like kind of
here,
right there where there's the subway station.
Just pop it there. And then the other thing I'm putting in is
that's where the Olive Garden is.
I'm going to put that in New York City, and then I'm also using Wikidata as a kind of place to point stuff to. So because it's kind of a reasonably canonical place to have that in there. And what is a Times Square? So I don't know, public square, I guess. I'll leave it for now.
You said Trafalgar Square was.
I don't think I did, but the idea there is
Okay.
I leave it blank unless there's a specific type, because there's like some crazy silly types you can have in there. And then currently that's just rendering up.
tourist attraction.
Tourist attraction, I guess, yeah. And then the idea is I can then have events which are based in a location. So here you see that's tagged as being in Trafalgar Square, and then
So you go to Trafalgar Square to do happy things?
there will be there are many happy things in Trafalgar Square.
Ice cream on Sunday on the staircase.
Yeah.
Pigeons?
Yeah, I was just saying. So the idea is like events are tied to locations, and then check-ins will be there too. So you can click in and see what events have been there, what check-ins have been there. That's kind of the rough way. Like I ideally wanted to tie it all into OpenStreetMap, so it would look up straight on there. But the OpenStreetMap API lookups are slow, very slow, like 30 seconds, and that's not a good user experience. Well, because you're downloading a chunk of map data around a point, and the problem there is if you're in like the center of London or the center of Manhattan or wherever, you say, get me 50 feet around this point, you're going to get enough locations to be useful. If you're in the middle of nowhere, rural area or whatever, and your GPS is off a bit, and you say, get me 50 locations around here, it's going to be 50 feet around here. the thing you're at might not be 50 within the 50 feet, so you then have to progressively get larger and larger chunks, and then pass all the XML into usable format.
I have a tendency to do that when I create the location, not
Yeah, yeah. But ideally, you kind of want that Foursquare experience of like, check in, here's a list of things, tap.
Right.
Yeah.
And unless you maintain that database yourself, which sucks, you know, you can't, you know, or you delegate that to somebody else. Well, I did that, and then that service went down because the company went bust. So.
Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to delegate it to myself for any place I've been to already. New places are different.
Foursquare
If I'm going back to the
data,
same place
and
over and over again, let me save it.
I don't want to use Foursquare because it's not public data. It's, you know, Foursquare's proprietary data. At least with OpenStreetMap. What I might do at some point, I've been putting off for a long time, is just run a service that takes like the last week's dump of OSM and serves that up using an API very similar to the Foursquare API. But the problem is, it's just like, the data dump is like 30 gigs of data every week.
Yeah.
That's a lot of data to process.
You had that project as well, all about the toilet.
Yeah, so there's actually,
That was super interesting.
the thing is, you can actually, I've got that somewhere, I'm not sure I've got that one here. But the interesting thing,
Put a feedback or report.
not sure I do. I've got one that's very similar to it, but far less socially worthy. No, it doesn't do it. So the nice thing about OSM is you can actually do some quite interesting visualizations with it. That's not helpful. But eventually, one of the things I'd like to do is when I'm checking into my own site, it'll nudge me and say, hey, the place you're in is a restaurant. Does it take credit cards? Yes or no? And then contribute that data back to OSM. Because that's one of the things Foursquare is doing now, which is when you go somewhere, it'll say, is this place a good place for dates? Okay, that's a bit of a subjective one. Is this place wheelchair accessible? Does this place take Amex? Does this place do this thing? And you can kind of contribute that data back. But rather than it going to Foursquare, it could go to somewhere that's marginally more open and
I think it's super interesting.
so, I don't know, has anyone else got weird location things they want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, if you're, it's really good box. And it's actually all about going shoeless.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't, when I read it, I didn't get my iPad. A lot of people did.
There's a lot of data in it.
But that's, I was like.
Oh, apparently I have a list of all of the zip codes in the United States. Sorry, all of the zip codes in New York City areas now, I think.
Oh, I wonder if mine's
I
there.
know a lot of people have.
You wanna tell me?
No, keep going. Scrolling.
0016.
None of those are mine.
It's from the 10016.
I think it's what we're in right now.
Awful.
Okay.
Awful to think about. But yeah, it's such a good book.
But the idea here is, the reason I'm using Wikidata is just because you then get the foreign translations of names. You can also get that out of GeoNames, which gives you. GeoNames is good for the city level, but not for the venue level. It's not going to tell you where. Like, it'll work out. If you're here, if you're in this exact lat long, you're probably in New York. It won't say if you're in this exact lat long, you're in Starbucks, which is the kind of check-in level I want. But obviously, you either use Foursquare or you use OSM, which is incomplete.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I mean,
It's really just a problem of getting good data.
That's why my solution is to make my own.
Yeah, but then everyone has their own little.
Well, that goes back to the discussion of how do you share venues and it doesn't matter. So how do I say that my venue is the same as your venue?
Yeah.
Let me take a look
Well,
at that.
RDF has a
Something
solution,
people
same
know
as.
that are that
yeah,
dedicated. Yeah.
Exactly.
Equivalent to is, or some term like that we could come up with.
Well, that also goes back to the question. Now, we already have some syndication, which is the same thing, also on. Although you didn't syndicate it, it happens to relate to the same thing.
Yeah.
This goes back to the bibliography question earlier, Webb mentioned, which is, how do you say this isn't my version of it, that this is another version of it somewhere else, but not the one I created? What? Do you consider that a citation?
I mean, without any other context, that's at least a citation.
What if, let's say that I have a venue that I've set up, and somebody else wants to use my venue data in a Indieweb distributed format. So they want I want it so that when they're looking for data, they can find my version of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can say, here's somebody else's version of it, import the information from that.
Meaning it's like as a
Basically distributed
as a
data.
venue, it's like here's Foursquare's representation of my venue, here's OpenStreetMap's representation of my venue. Is that what you're saying?
Well, or
No, that's different,
here,
I think.
well, it is and it isn't. That's, here's a company's representation. What if it's, here's some guy's representation of my venue? Some guy, in this case, let's say you're some guy in this scenario.
Did anyone create an Etherpad for this?
Kind of, but we've just been chatting already rather than documenting.
I didn't see it. See you tomorrow.
I'm just gonna go to the bathroom and get myself
All right.
figured out.
But what it comes down to is if I know more about a place than you do, I've spent all the time loading all this information.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't you take advantage of it?
But there's a trust issue there of like, who do I trust? Who do I?
Like any permalink.
That's your problem. That's not my problem.
No, sure.
That's only my problem if I want to look at your information.
Sure.
It's it's basically the receiver who
Yeah.
has to decide whether or not the information's worth and exactly who they trust.
Do we have any types or like an alternative representation for this in something like HCard? I'm sure we do. I mean, we've got UURL, but and UUID for a canonical URL, but
That's it.
we kind of want one which is a non-canonical URL.
Yes.
Say,
That's what your URL is.
But what's
Okay.
also on?
so we use
Representing another-
UUID for the like homepage of the
The canonical.
so yeah, and then just UURL without for non-canonical.
But what if I have 5 people whose version of it I want to reference? So let's say all of you have
one for each
all of you have. Well, how do you sort that out?
Like just say, also, other representations on the indie web.
Because I'm thinking of this.
I would have thought URL.
I would have thought URL in this case would be, let's say your venue has an official website.
Yeah, but you'd use the UUID for that. The U-UID, not UUID. That's Microsoft.
So you're saying UUID is the official website of, let's say, Hummus Brothers.
Yeah.
And then as many URLs as you want to represent.
Sure. I mean, if we really want to, we have, UP URL alt or something like that. So UX URL alt or something like that. But I'm not sure there's a use case for it.
No, it's just the URL for it.
Yeah. And then you just use, if you have a list of domains you trust,
then you accept the information.
then you accept the information from those, and you put as much trust in those domains as you like.
Yeah, but then you get the odd friend that you trust who betrays your trust by updating their website with something crazy. But,
You shouldn't trust them anymore.
Well, that's what it's all.
Yeah.
It's just,
Or you pull that information on a versioned basis, and you say, here is Tantek's representation of his favorite restaurant circa a month ago, and if he changes it, you put it in and say, oh, there's a change there. Do I trust that change? Yes. Version the changes.
interesting.
It's a faff, but. And then you do have some issues like how do you deal with closed venues. OpenStreetMap has a really hacky solution to that, which is that you take the generally OpenStreetMap has a type. It doesn't have a property called type, It has a variety of properties that are called like amenity, shop, office, that are kind of type properties, and then you just prefix the name with disused colon. So instead of it being amenity equals bar, it becomes disused colon amenity equals bar until somebody takes over that place. That stuff is all faff.
So far, nobody that I know of, not just in venues but anything, is using that type of philosophy, which is the crowdsourced information
Yeah.
from the community.
What's the name of the session?
Sorry?
What is the Etherpad name of the session?
I'm not sure we have one. We've just been kind of.
It was locations, check-ins, and venues.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can add an oh my to the end.
Um, I'm just gonna call that check-ins. I think that supersets everything.
Oh, Kevin Marks is saying URL is other representations.
I already said
Okay.
that.
Yes.
He's just behind on that. Is he online? Is he on the
He's
feed?
in IRC.
Is he on the feed or no?
He must be the one
He must be
viewer.
watching the feed, yeah.
We have one viewer right now. It must be him.
Can't you see the name of who is
Not necessarily. No, I don't know who's viewing a live stream.
Or can I ask you to text those photos, maybe?
Yeah, I was gonna use your little fun app thing.
Okay.
So I took some of everyone working to.
So, Kevin Marks has confirmed that he is the sole watcher of the feed right now. Should we wave to him?
Who are we waving to?
Kevin.
Yes, he's waving back, which is a bit deft. That's the comment.
So I don't know who. Has anyone else been trying to implement kind of Foursquare swarm style check-ins or?
I'd like to because it's one of my big use cases of a silo. Most frequent. And second, it's also one of my big use cases that the silo has a massive deficiency that I want to solve for myself, which is offline check-ins.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I don't
Like,
have
literally, sorry, async check-ins is really what I mean. As in, I want to just be able to like pull up the device, not wait for the dang thing to talk to the server.
Bye everyone, I'll
and
see you
check
all tomorrow.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
See you tomorrow.
How is your device going to know where you are? I mean,
It knows where I am.
no, but how's it going to know?
I don't care.
How are you going to do? If you're sitting in, Starbucks and then there's a shop right next door to you, how's it going to determine this?
Okay, when I use Maps.me, completely
Okay.
offline, it knows where I am. It shows me the shops where I am. Therefore,
Sure,
it's
sure.
theoretically possible to build.
Yeah,
this.
you can download all that data onto your phone or onto your device.
Oh, you have the
I
other
already
way.
have this data on my phone because I use Maps.me.
Okay.
You also have the other way of doing it if you didn't. Which
What's
is, well, basically you check into something, it ends up as a draft, and then you later update it, which is the offline version.
So, Maps.me does that. I haven't used it.
It's awesome.
Okay.
It's like the most epic offline application ever.
So it's pulling down OpenStreetMap, I'm presuming.
Yes.
Okay.
It's also
It is so cool. It is.
But is
It
it?
might be the best mobile application ever. Yeah. As in, like, it is. It turns your device into an offline map. Like, that's pure magic, as far as I'm concerned.
So
It's just like,
it's pulling down. Oh, that's already.
like when I'm walking down the street offline, it would actually be dynamically updating because the device has enough ability to gain geolocation data without being connected to a network.
Oh, it's using Wi-Fi triangulation. But the issue is, I'm guessing the problem is the location data is probably, I'm not sure whether or not it's getting down just the imagery or the actual, like, can you tap on a venue and it says this is whatever?
Yeah, because Maps.me has that info because it has that from OpenStreetMaps.
Yeah, and
Okay, that's cool.
like let's sort of just let's like using just like let's say the Foursquare, just like the most restrictive version is that every basically Monday through Friday I go to the same route all the time. So it should cache all of that venue information and sort of be persistent, and then you could say like, look,
if I get on this bus and then I get off and I walk into this office, go figure, right?
Like I'm in a coffee shop I go to or whatever. So I think it's like there's the idea that how do you cache for the sort of the most used scenario, and then make it so that when I open my phone and I say time to check in, that it already has the list of possible places pre-populated. It doesn't need to go back to the server because it sees them sort of on this same location that I almost always like. I don't think I think I liked how Tim clarified it. It's about the asynchronous use case, not necessarily the offline, because it's not like I'm going to go travel to a Faraday cage. Really, it's just that it's likely that you can already glean where I am because I follow a routine.
Well, even if you've got GPS, which you don't have on your Touch, if you're in a country where you don't have a data plan, which happens occasionally,
or you can
download a map and
iPads also have Compass.
Okay.
Somehow it's able to
But it's like
I have no idea.
It's like knowing I'm going to travel to, let's say, London.
I
could download sort of a London venue set and just have that available to me. Like eagerly loading the venues that you are like.
Right. So Maps.me, you have to pre-download the maps.
Right.
I'll call you.
But they're not that. I mean, they're like that.
Yeah. But once you have them, they're there.
Yeah.
And then you can check in.
And every couple months, it bugs you to update them because OpenStreetMaps is updated and blah blah blah.
I don't. Right. Yeah, I'm.
Or they added walking
with other
directions.
people. I don't know what time I'll get back.
Yeah.
So
it's got walking and driving directions.
I'll give you a call when I'm on my way.
Yeah.
I don't know what time
I'll have to have a look at the. Actually, if it's
I have the
open
number.
source, then there will
This
be
is Maps.me, right?
Yes.
There will be a. Aha. Oh no, that's not helpful.
Is it open source?
Copyright. Here we go. This is how it's from.
Oh, that's going to give me a problem.
I was using OSRM, which is the open source routing machine, which means that in the future they should be getting cycle routes, because that's in OSRM now.
It's also our mutual landlord.
So I'm just inferring some things about how it's working based on.
Yeah, I think for me the two big kind of use cases are check-ins and like running activity kind of data.
So here's an idea. We could actually take Maps.me, the iPhone app, fork it, add the ability to provide it with a location, provide it with a URL where it will send back pings, essentially, of where you are. Or maybe when you, or even when you tap on a, how's it like? Maybe when you tap on the venue, have just a check-in, and you press check-in, and it sends a notification to your site saying, Santec just checked into East 23rd Street, or whatever it might be, with a pointer to the OSM object. It's a bit of programming work, but it's a nice enough UI that you could. Or steal the guts of it and use that to download the data. I'm just downloading it on my phone. Yeah.
A good thing to do on fast Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
By the way. But yeah, you can see the venues, and then you can tap on them. Even the addresses, you can tap on them. Like 115, it says building. But then I can. Okay, so you saw that, right? I can save that. You saw that happen, right?
Yeah.
I can then go here here? Yeah, here, and go Mozilla NYC, and then I can go done. And then, let's say I go somewhere else in the map, like, zoom out, there's a pin there.
Yeah.
And so if I tap that,
Okay.
and that's pretty slick.
Mm.
Like, I don't know what happens to this data. It's saved somewhere.
Presumably just in the app storage, yeah.
There's a share button there too.
Yeah.
So maybe that's. at
So
least
I can
from a
message
UI
or mail
perspective,
that.
That's
Yeah. We could have a. So presume it's just. What is it off? Is it just a. What's it on?
Whoa.
What can it send?
What is a geocolon URL? No, GE0. What?
Oh, okay. Well,
Did that get uploaded to a server?
No, I presume it's just using a SMSE-BB-BKV. Oh, that's
The
GE0.
GE0 URI scheme.
Oh, it gives me the coordinates. Show an OpenStreetMap.
Wait a minute. How did Opera support that GE0 URI scheme?
How do you write? It's actually a website.
No, there's also
it's
a
just
regular
it's
URI in there
HTTP.
too.
It's just HTTP. It's just GE0 dot. That's the URL. It wasn't a
It's a
URL.
shortener.
Oh,
Just a short route.
There is a geo, not
Oh,
zero,
geo.me.
URI scheme.
Yeah.
okay. And that, what? Okay.
What URL is that? It just gives you the
The lat long?
mlong on OSM.
So it doesn't include the metadata that
No, it's just
just put in.
yeah, it's just a coordinate thing. That actually looks like
Can I see that too?
there is a short link thing in OSM. So they found out some algorithm for turning the lat long plus bit, all that kind of stuff into a
Into
short
those
URL.
bytes.
Yeah. So basically,
Or they store it.
what you're seeing here is like this is basically just like it's what Tom said. It's a translation of lat, lon, and zoom for OpenStreetMap, and it constructs this URI, which is not even. It's just a URI directly with URI parameters for OpenStreetMap. So.
But still, you could use that because
Yeah.
you could send that URL to somewhere, I don't know, website or something, and then they could just go and say, oh, okay, I've got coordinates, that's a good start.
What if I send it to myself? Does that work?
See if there's anything interesting on that page other than just the coordinates. Nah.
I don't know what Apple does iMessage does if you try and send stuff to yourself.
I do actually use it to sync between
That's trying.
laptop and phone.
And now, if I click on the geo URL, it opens maps.me. It opens something.
It'll probably open a web page, which will then open the app.
Well, I didn't click on GeoMe. I typed in the geocolon and it's not doing anything, so something is not working. It's just kind of.
My phone is 99% downloaded in New York, okay.
Oh, there we go. I just texted myself. Oh, so that somehow broke. Oh, there it goes. I finally loaded. I think. Well, okay, let's quit this. Let's try that
Wow,
again.
it's downloaded the whole of the New York area.
All right, let's see what happens. Watch this. So if I tap that geocolon URL, it switches to maps.me,
Okay.
and then
Interesting.
so it just brings up the building. So it actually is lossy in that regard.
Yeah.
Like in my own maps.me, it doesn't know that I've already put a favorite there.
Yeah, because it's
That's
only
tapped.
sending the. Yeah, it's only sending the.
But it did look up and say that's a building. You notice that. It did actually say 115.
Mm.
So it is looking at the lat long and its metadata. In its metadata files, it has map data files and saying, oh yeah, we have a thing there, an object.
So what happens if you go into My Places? Yeah. And I'm just wondering if
bookmarks.
Oh, interesting. The bookmarks. It says that bookmarks can be imported and displayed in maps.me. Open a KML or KMZ file with saved bookmarks from email, Dropbox, or web link.
Well,
So
how do
you could actually have a KML file, which is just all the stuff from your website that you have a little script that just goes through all your files, all your HTML files, extracts all the locations, turns them into a KML, and then imports them in. Doesn't seem to have any way of exporting them.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I go to my places, and it doesn't have any thing there. How about the menu? Go to settings.
Is there any way of, on maps.me, is there any way of using it without downloading the whole map? Because I just want to look at something in London without it downloading 600 megs of map.
The best you can do is do it without directions or without.
Yeah.
No, you can still use it. It'll just, at some resolution, it'll say, oh, you need to download a map.
Oh, okay.
Like, you can still use it to look at the world.
So it looks like you can share sets of bookmarks. Like if you go into your bookmark sets,
Oh yeah, that's
you can send by email. And it looks like what that ultimately does is attaches a KMZ file to the outgoing message in your client.
Where did you find the sets?
I'm just looking at.
Yeah. So I've just added Bryant Park to my, is the only thing on my list.
Yeah.
I just press share by email, and then it says attached are the bookmarks from maps.me.
Where do you see share by email?
So select Mozilla NYC. Or go back, I'm sorry, go back to where it was.
just a general share link. There's a normal Android one, right?
No, when I tap on my places.
You're on Android.
No, iOS. And it comes up with one item
So
in
tap
there.
bookmarks on the main screen.
Share by email. Weird. That's this iPad thing.
I haven't set up email.
Oh, that might be why.
Yeah.
If you don't have email set up, and
But they should still use the same share UI that this, like,
It's a
separate thing.
It's a
press
different
it,
thing.
and
I
it
understand, but they should have this button. Not a share by email button. They should have just a share button.
and then-
So there's a share by email button that should show up at the bottom when you're on that.
It's
What I'm
supposed to
saying
be
is
for a
yeah, no, I
backup.
agree.
instead.
Yeah, I agree, but
What does that do when you share by email?
I've got it. I've got an
attaches a
example.
KMZ file of the bookmarks.
I've got an example here. See, that could be a good way of seeding your own venues database. If you've got a bunch of places stored in,
Because it's super easy to just like favorite stuff
yeah.
in Maps.me.
Well, you could, as I said, you could export that file. Okay, so KMZ, which is what's that? What is KMZ? That's
Look,
it's not text, but it's not KML, which was the XML
it's a
one.
GZIX KML, I think.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Yeah. Good.
Oh, sorry, zip 2.0.
KMZ file because it's a main KML file and 0 or more supporting files that are packaged using a zip utility.
Right.
Yeah, so Tantek, I think it looks like there's a difference in the UI or difference in the capacity, the capabilities of the application in Android versus iOS.
Oh.
Because in under Android, you would see this share option instead. And,
Oh, with that button.
right.
I don't have that.
But it's yeah, but in iOS, there's yeah, from that screen, there's only a share by email button.
Still, this is worth documenting as a way to seed a person's location database.
David Barron is the one that turned me on to Maps.me. is it's something that makes even like the lowliest of iPods useful.
Mhm.
Like as a dedicated offline mapping device. That's just like the kind of thing that I don't know if anyone used GPS devices back in the day, where you had to like get a map, pay for a map,
You can
install
We're
it.
trying to do that on cars.
There's a guy who actually still makes. There's a guy called Talkie Toaster who produces like monthly OSM dumps that you can put on Garmin, like car and bike GPSs. Which is kind of cool. The notes data doesn't seem to be transferred. Yes. Oh no, there we go. Turns out, check this out. The description that I added to the thing has been transferred when you share it by email. So if you've added descriptions, that stuff will come through.
Is this a KMZ file?
Yeah, this is unzipped KMZ, yeah.
Does that mean KML? Is KMZ zipped KML?
Yeah, basically. All of this stuff up here is just the colors, and then it's just the place mark elements. There'll be a place mark element for each one. It looks like that MWM scale looks like it's just a standard OpenStreetMap scale scale number, which go from 0 to about 20 now we're up to, which is just the size of tile you want to request.
This is slick.
Yeah, I'm just thinking actually, if you wanted to, it wouldn't be too hard to put hashtags in the description either. If you wanted to tag the places.
Yeah.
And it's got the timestamp of when you save the place too, so that's like, and that's also like the seed of like if you want to say like I was here at this point in time, if, assuming that depending on how you want to use it. But
I know that's when you saved it, which is not the same as when you were there.
Right. I mean that's something that's like reflected in
this,
how you use it.
If you have this of places you've saved, and you had a what's it called, GPX of where you've been. Mapping those two together is a pretty good way to get offline check-ins. Offline async check-ins, that is. Because you've got a list of places you care about, but actually, the interesting side of it is if we took the maps.me data and the app and made a check-in app using, because they've already got the basis of an Android and iOS check-in app. They've got the tough stuff, which is the binary parsing. I don't even have an Apple Watch app. Check in from your watch to your phone.
That's pretty wicked. How does that work?
Well, they have a watch app, a WatchKit app. So
the other open source.
Do they have an Android Wear extension for their Android?
No, let's have a look. What's in Android? Source.com, that's me.
We need to be documenting this. Like pasting this in IRC at least. Side note, don't ever post about Bitcoin on Facebook.
Still? That's depressing.
That's why I wrote the little parody song lyric about it. My Bitcoin brings all the spam bots to the Facebook.
How's that go? I haven't heard that song.
You haven't heard it? Let me pull up a permanent for you.
But I can get banned from YouTube for playing Milkshake.
There you go. My hash Bitcoin brings all the spam bots to the Facebook. And they're like, it's more global than yours. Damn right, it's more magic than yours. I can promise you perfect combination. 100% per month, but I have to crowdfund. That was a comment that I posted to Facebook. Anyway.
Okay. So it's not an audio file. That's why.
No, but you're welcome to do an audio rendition of it.
Sorry, it's not in my repertoire.
But this is a live recording, right?
What?
We're broadcasting, right?
Yeah.
And recording?
Yes.
So we just did. This is going on YouTube, right?
Automatically. Although I was going to download a copy for future use.
So you may want to download a copy before they pull it off for, DMCA violation for milkshake.
Never heard of it. I have a policy of only seeing public domain songs on YouTube.
Good way to keep your account.
Anybody know any Stephen Foster? He's been dead for, what now, 160 years? We're probably safe.
Record any YouTube videos?
Me?
Did he record any YouTube videos?
Is he on Twitch?
I'm liking Kevin Marks' description here. I visited New York this week, so I get to use its subway, which to me is like the parallel universe London Underground.
The seats are comfier on the underground.
Not having been on the underground.
The seats are fabric, and
We can't have fabric seats here in New York. Nobody would want to sit on them.
yeah, exactly. Well, nobody really wants to sit on them. Except they're actually designed in such a way that when you sit on them, whatever's inside them will kind of go up in a little dust cloud. So it's a kind of way to get rid of all of the nastiness. It just goes on to you.
Self-cleaning.
What we have is molded
Yeah.
butt impressions. It's always nice.
Okay.
Just a train, there's one within 5 minutes, and you don't have to be like, oh, do I get a week pass or a day pass or one trip at a time? It's like, it will do the best deal for you.
Yeah. With contact as well, so it's just
after
like
the fact.
credit card, debit card, done.
Oh dear.
Well, we'll have that in 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have it on the cabs now.
Well, contactless payment in replacing MetroCard is a bit controversial because they haven't actually put out a bid for the replacement. They've just talked about putting out the bid and then postponed it.
So I should probably read that next one. So
Oh dear, the SEO people have discovered WebMention.
we're doing.
We are, that's,
Gotta stay one foot
Basically,
ahead of them.
just need to have a rolling technology. So
Names be changed.
5 years later, you just change it, and then you wait 5 years until the SEO people discover it, and then you move on to like Web Mentions 2, which will just be slightly different.
so when do we start talking check-ins? Oh, right. I vaguely remember Checky being on open source. Is that not true? Do you guys want to talk about it?
No? But I didn't hear your playlist. That might contribute to it.
Great. What's that problem when you Google for something and you find your own blog post?
Not helpful.
Yeah, that's not a problem if you're an SEO person.
But yes, self-spam. SEO is too good.
Great.
What would be nice is to piggyback on the data that's already downloaded by Maps.me. Because having to download another 100 megs or whatever for the whole of New York
Right.
seems a pain in the ass. So it would be nice to contribute back and say, hey, look, we're trying to do this weird check-in thing. Could you add an option?
The other thing that annoys me about the Maps.me like data not being smooth to get out
Yeah.
is it's from OpenStreetMaps. If I'm editing a location and giving it a name, I probably want to submit that to OpenStreetMaps.
So have you downloaded, there is an OpenStreetMap editor for
I don't want to use that. Like, I'm already in the map. I'm doing the
Yeah.
thing that's easiest for me. The side effect of me doing what's easiest for me should be to contribute to the community. Right? I mean,
So there is an app called GoMap with 2 exclamation marks on the end, which downloads a chunk of OSM you can edit, and then I actually edited one thing earlier, which is to Chipotle. Because, you know,
they
what's wrong
want
with that?
some disease.
I did actually a while back download the what's it, not Public Health England, but the what are they called? The people who do the Food Standards Agency data, and just added it to OpenStreetMap, so all the restaurants now have Food Standards Agency data. A friend of mine built a hack on top of that, which was to make it so that when you checked into somewhere on Foursquare, if it had a too low Food Standards Agency thing, it would use Twilio to call you. And
Can you add New York City? We have grades.
yeah, these were 0 to 5, and if it was 2 or below.
All right.
We have
Mark's
A, B, C,
IRC
and
reminds
D.
me that we are already half an hour over
Yeah.
on our time, but I wanted to let the time go a little bit since we started this session late. If you are brain dumping into the Etherpad, please continue to do so.
So what is do we want to do a closing summation?
No.
Okay.
Closing summation is show up tomorrow, or be online tomorrow, and
I'm
talk about what you want to do.
going to say for now I have concerns about my ability to get here. I'm going to play it by ear, but one way or another I will be here either in the flesh or in spirit.
If you are not here with your equipment, I will set up my
Do you want to borrow my
Camry. Well, I don't want to give it back to you. I have that same camera that I can set up with a laptop with Talkie as well.
No, I'm saying, do you want to borrow a battery mic?
No.
You can give it back to me at the
Good.
next Indiewebcamp.
If everyone's around here, it's good enough.
Okay. These are actually surprisingly good. Anyway, I will stop the broadcast now. Does anybody have any final broadcast words?
Bye, Internet.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye-bye, Internet.